And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the UKSimRacing GT3 League Season 11, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. Today, we take a look back of all the racing action in round 2 of 9 in Spain at the Circuito de Jerez, Ángel Nieto, in honour of the late motorcycling legend from the country of Spain. And what a circuit this is going to be compared to our season opener. Last week, it was all about the technical test in Japan at the Fuji circuit, whereas today it's all about sweepers, gradual elevation changes and fast flying apexes. And well, could we see this round shake things up after we've seen some early favourites established in round number 1, but we can't read too much into it as we've got plenty of rounds to go, and this could definitely be a round that continues to push the momentum and ask the question, who is the master of the GT3 class car? But as you get ready to watch the racing today, welcome to this post-round broadcast with all the racing action having occurred as of Sunday the 2nd of July 2023. We're bringing it to you as if it were live 2 days later on this fine Tuesday the 4th of July. And well, what does that mean in terms of differences? Well, all the racing action will be as close as possible to live. Indeed, I, as your host and commentator, do not know what happens in the practice, the qualifying or the race session itself, and therefore it's completely uninitiated to me, and it'll be as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. Of course, if you are tuning in by the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel live right now, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already to stay up to date with all our latest broadcasts and the highlight reels. We do recommend you do so. We should point out that if you are tuning in right now and you do know the outcome of the race or any of the sessions today, please avoid any potential spoilers for the guys and girls tuning in. It makes their experience all the more better, and for me in the content booth all the more better as well. But I've got ahead of myself. Who am I in the content booth? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX14 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action today, and indeed for the entirety of the season, is what is expected to be the most hotly anticipated season of the GT3 League thus far. Indeed, 11 seasons in. We can't just keep saying that, but it is true. From season to season, we go from strength to strength, and round number 1 was an absolute thriller, and tonight is going to be even better. But as we get ready to go racing, let's take you through the calendar thus far and what still lies in wait. And as we can see, we started off on the 25th of June at the Fuji International Speedway in Japan. There we saw close rivalries across all 3 classes, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in due course. But today it's round number 2 at the Circuito de Jerez in Spain, the first of a double header in the Spanish country. Indeed, on the 2nd of July we see the first of the 2 sprints, and after today we make our way to Motorland Aragon, a circuit recently introduced to the iRacing simulator platform. Indeed, one that our drivers are having to get themselves very quickly acquainted with in order to come out on top on the 9th of July, and we'll be bringing you that broadcast, indeed all remaining broadcasts this season, live from circuit side. But after round number 3, we make our way over to the United States of America for the first time this season, the Virginia International Raceway. And then the state of Virginia is going to be picturesque, but it's going to be roaring with a score at GT3 class engineering as our drivers look to end the first half of the season on an ultimate high, and that'll be on the 16th of July. After that sprint, we then take a break fortnight. We have 2 weeks without racing action, but don't worry, if you feel those withdrawal symptoms kicking in, we'll be back on the 6th of August for round number 5 to kick off the second half of the season. And that'll be at the roller coaster ride of road racing in the state of Georgia, near the town of Brazelton. It will be none other than Road Atlanta, or Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta as it's known in full, for another sprint race. After that, we'll make our way back to Spain for the 3rd and final time this season for the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya in round number 6, and that will be the end of our sequence of sprint races for a due time on the 13th of August, after which we'll then make our way for round number 7 to France a week later on the 20th of August for what is the Circuit de la Sarthe, also known as Le Mans, alternatively also known as the Circuit des 24 Hours de Mans, depending on your nomenclature. And then the first of our 2 endurance race rounds of the season is going to be an absolute thriller for the simple reason, what better way to host an endurance race than the Endurance Legend Circuit that's recently celebrated its centenary of the 24-hour Le Mans, and that is of course the Le Mans Circuit. Then for our penultimate round, we make our way all the way down under around the world to Australia, which is where we'll stay for the remainder of the season, with Phillip Highland playing host to our final sprint race of the season on the 27th of August. We bring it all to a close a week later after that on the 3rd of September, another endurance racing legend with the 12 hours of Bathurst and also the 1,000 kilometres of Bathurst. It's Mount Panorama on what is there, the 3rd of September, round 9 of 9. And will the change of the mountain awaits on drivers at the very end. Indeed, they'll be going from essentially driving the footfalls of a mountain at Fuji to start the season, so up and over a mountain at the end of the season. So there's quite an interesting parallel there. But going on to our circuit for today then, it's the Circuito de Jerez, Ángel Nieto, named after Ángel Nieto Roldan, the driver, the motorcyclist driver, and a very famous one at that from Spain, highly decorated, taking multiple championships. I do believe in total, a grand total of 13 major motorcycling championships. I may be incorrect on number, it may be 15 in fact. But as our drivers take to the circuit today, we see our drivers taking to the MotoGP layout of the circuit. Now located near the city of Jerez de la Frontera in the region of Cadiz in Andalusia of Spain, this is a circuit which prides itself on fast flying corners, as we mentioned earlier. You can see this at the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com. Thank you to them for their circuit maps and a wonderful simulator that goes with it. And as our drivers make the way on around here, it will be about trying to manage as much apex speed as possible and get back to full throttle as soon as possible at corner exit. Get it right and they'll find themselves making time in spades, but get it wrong and they'll leave themselves vulnerable, particularly on the shorter straights of this circuit compared to other circuits in our calendar, and there'll be some battles under braking, you can count on that. But as they make the way across the start finish line and up towards turn number 1, we're definitely uphill in the run towards the Expo at 92 corner at turn number 1. A sharp right angled right hander which sees the drivers drive into a blind lay apex, and as they come out of the right hander, it's a short charge towards turn number 2. At 2, it's about a hairpin which rolls our drivers onwards and downhill in towards the left hander at turn number 3, but they want to go full throttle as soon as possible through turn number 3 and set themselves up for the sweeper at turn number 4. Then we'll see most of our drivers on low fuel try to do it flat out, but on heavy fuel and cold tyres they may need to lift, but get it right and they'll set themselves up for Cito bonds at turn number 5. And will turn number 5 on a two-dimensional circuit map doesn't quite convey the nature of how exactly it flows. You'll have to see it in person, and we'll ride on board with some drivers and qualified to point it out to you. Cito Pods is a circuits corner whereby it's all about the elevation change, and indeed as they rise towards the apex, our drivers will find themselves having to try and pick the right time to return to full throttle, because if they go too early they'll end up going wide on the exit of the corner. If they go too late they'll carry no speed at all in the run down the back straight up towards turn number 6. And they're into dry sack hairpin, breaking their way into the sliced corner of the circuit. Our drivers will go onto the anchors and come all the way down the gearbox, all the way down the first gear, before exit out and charging through the double left of turns 7 and 8. Coming out the asphalt corner, a very late apex there as well. Our drivers will then make the way up towards Ángel Nieto, the named circuit, and indeed the name of the driver, which the circuit is named after. And as they come through the right hander at turn number 9, it's then the full up right hander at turn number 10 at Pelucri as they make the way onwards towards turn number 11. Now, if we were running the Formula 1 layout of this circuit, indeed the circuit has played host to a couple of Formula 1 Grand Prix, the European Grand Prix, although a very interesting fact as to why this circuit was banned from hosting Formula 1 at a particular point in time, and more on that little tidbit in short order. Our drivers will be going into a chicane, but because we're running the MotoGP layout, there'll be no chicane here today. Instead they'll make their way through Alex Crivella and make coming through turn number 11, flat out for the right hander, and up towards Ferrari corner at turn number 12, another flat out run before they make their way in towards Lorenzo at turn number 13 of 13, braking hard into the hairpin there and exiting out and charging uphill to the start finish line to complete the lap and do it all over again. Well, if that doesn't sound extreme enough, well, we'll get to see the circuit in person very shortly. But just before we go racing, to give you a quick reminder of the rules: car setup wise, drivers are not permitted to change the car without penalty at any point during the season, so we do see any car changes today, albeit I haven't got any of my research notes. We will be seeing our drivers receiving a penalty. Car fuel loads are restricted to 50% for all races. Qualifying wise, a low qualifying format shall be used where all our drivers take to an isolated instance of the circuit. They will split the qualifying laps without having to worry about traffic or the need for slipstream, and drivers shall have 10 minutes to set their best possible time at an unlimited number of laps. In terms of the race rules, meanwhile, in general, the races shall commence via a double-file rolling start as the tradition of the GT3 League. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, albeit we are expecting one pit stop from all of our drivers today. Each driver has one fast repair available should they pick up damage and need to come into the pits to get it quickly repaired, and all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race. As for the sprint race itself, a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. Indeed, they'll be needed to be wary, particularly with those trap blitz being quite aggressive around here, and running wide will see you very quickly accumulate 1 or 2 instant points, and before you know it, you may end up with a drive-through. That's enough rules, regulation, everything between. Let's head back to our circuit side pictures and take you through our schedule for today. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, in just over 5 minutes time, we'll be going into our second qualified session of the season. 10 minutes in duration at 8 o'clock this evening, and then we'll get to see whether our leading pole sitters from Fuji can make it 2 out of 2, or whether they find themselves floundering versus their counterparts. After which we'll go straight to the grid for a 1-0 race today. That'll be the 45-minute sprint race kicking off at approximately 10 past 8 this evening. Well, with a grand total of just shy of 50 drivers on the grid, anticipated 46. In fact, if we're a little bit more accurate there, it's going to be a crowded Jerez circuit, but one that we're not going to be ungrateful for, given the volume of drivers out there. But in terms of temperatures right now, we've got 22 degrees centigrade ambient temperature and 26 degrees track temperature, and that does mean it's quite warm, albeit it could be a lot warmer, we should point out. And this circuit is known for seeing its tarmac reach upwards of 40 to 50 degrees centigrade under race conditions, particularly in the summer. You'll see the local temperatures hit in excess of 38 to 39, if not going into the 40s, and therefore this is considered to be one of those circuits where, depending on the conditions you're racing in, it could be an absolute nightmare to race on. But for our drivers, it's relatively cool, and that's going to help them out no end. But as we do look at some of our drivers making the way on around right now, we do see that Sam Sherwood, one of the leading two drivers in the elite class of Protect Motorsport, making his way on around. And well, the story, of course, last time out at what was the Fuji International Speedway was the grandiose battle between Sherwood and Erik Røseth, which did see Sherwood in the end taking the win, albeit with Røseth taking pole position and also the fastest lap of the race. They are joined at the top based on the result countback. It is Sherwood who leads, but they are both on 40 points. And Sherwood having that absolutely brilliant battle on the last lap to take the win by making a late move under braking and catching Røseth off guard. Speaking of Erik Røseth, he's currently in the pit lane. He's not making his way out of the circuit, but you can see him there in the distance, parked up for Racing Lab Esports and the number 42 driver from Norway. And those are your two top drivers at the moment in the elite class. But let's not count out the fact we've got plenty of other elite drivers out there, including Rhys Saunders, as we do see Saunders making his way there out of turn at number 6 and heading towards 7th very shortly. And with the Team Year 1 driver currently inside the top 3 of the championship, running in P3, and he'll be thinking about what he can do today in order to extend his approach to this championship and try and get himself into that battle for the top 2. But looking at outside the elite class, coming on to the pro class, well, the man who's got the fastest time out there at the moment, albeit I think that is a little bit erroneous, that 1:18.876 is Rob Armstrong, as we see the UKSimRacing Moss driver making his way into the pit lane there, and I do believe he may have cut track limits, and unfortunately our replay timings do take any laps which see the drive cross the line as a valid lap, and therefore that lap is technically invalid. But as Armstrong makes his way down the pit lane in the Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine, right now the UKSimRacing Boss driver all set and ready to go. But also we do have Casper Brotner making his way around the whole Putin cars, and right now the Dane flying on through turn number 10 and making his way up towards turns 11 and 12 in the Porsche 992 GT3, which we saw make its debut in the GT3 League as of the opening round, and definitely a very fast car, a very popular car on the grid. A lot of drivers going for its speed and also its stability, and enjoying its handling characteristics as well. A brilliant trio of characteristics that all go together. As Brotner makes his way on out, let's talk a little bit about our championship leader in the pro class, and that is Aaron McGregor. Albeit Aaron McGregor right now, where is he on circuit? I hear you ask. Well, he's in the pit lane, and you see him there in the distance. The Protect Motorsport driver from Scotland absolutely dominated proceedings at Fuji and taking them in by 20 seconds in the end. And we'll hear today, it's going to be a big question. Will this circuit suit him as well, or was that a one-off shine at Fuji? My gut feeling says if McGregor's got his teeth into it, he'll be like this all the way through the season. We'll have to wait and see if that's what plays out in practice. And then lastly, coming on to the AM class, while championship leader John Doble, you're not going to be seeing here today. You won't be seeing him in the round number 3 broadcast either, as when we had the post-round interview with him last time out at Fuji, he did mention he would not be available until round number 4. So therefore, we are going to be missing John Doble from TV SimSport Kimmy, and he will be back as of the round at Virginia International Raceway, making his way back towards home territory. I believe he's based in Canada, but on the North American continent, he'll be close to home, and we look forward to seeing him return. But it does mean his rivals right now have a golden opportunity to try and get an advantage over him. And we'll speak of those rivals. Currently, we have Steinar Sunny, P3 in the AM Class Championship for Racing Lab Esports AM2, as a Norwegian makes his way on through then up towards the right-hander of what is turn number 5 as he comes on through the hill rise now. And as he does in the BMW M4, he'll be hoping the M4 stability gives him an advantage here today. We have seen the M4 go quite strongly here in the past, particularly in season 10 of the GT3 League. But we've also got between Sunny and what is Doble in the championship, Jack Wyborn, albeit Wyborn at the moment currently in the pit lane, and we see him also parked up there, the TPA racing driver, and ready to go, currently P2 in the championship. But the man to watch out for, Neil Smith, you can see him there in the orange BMW for Disaster Prone Racing, just parked up behind, was on course for a P3 finish, and at one point was leading the race with race leading pace in the first half of the race at Fuji. Fell away a little bit towards the end of the race, but an unfortunate instance saw him taken out of the podium contention, We reckon he could be the man today who's going to be trying to charge down a win in the AM class. But as all of our drivers now are absolutely set and raring to go, we do have a number of newcomers on the grid today. Or when we say newcomers, making their debut in this season, albeit they've competed in previous seasons of the GT3 League, and Martin Tillin being one of them in the elite class. We see the TE Sport Kimmy driver making his way down the start of the straight up towards turn number 1. We also have Sam Congreve in the elite class, but we representing Empire Motorsports. We will also have, I do believe, Charles Phillips, the Phillips GP in the Pro class, and Lewis Payne in the Pro class. And in the AM class, it'll be James Connolly, Matt Maddox, and Matt Edmondson. Although I think the majority of our drivers now in the pit lane, given the fact they've only got 8 seconds before they go qualifying, and therefore we'll get to see them out on circuits. We see Alan Levitt for UKSimRacing Price making his way on down through there. What is turn at number 6, the hairpin. And as he comes on out and up towards turn 7 and 8, check a flag out. This practice session, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to go into qualifying. But as we make our way into qualifying here, given the fact we are looking at an iRacing replay file, it does mean that we're only going to see the qualifying session from the perspective of one driver in particular, and I do believe that will be from Rob Armstrong's perspective as he makes his way out of the pit lane here and on to his initial warm-up lap, or his out lap if you will. Now as the UKSimRacing Moss driver gets underway, we do say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat, including but not limited to Honez Racing, also to A there, and A I think is short for probably most likely name, but also administrator. Either way, we can see the mod status there for A. We also say hello to Medbo, the first of a Spanish doubleheader, indeed. And we also say hello to Alex there, and also to There's Nothing Here. Well, there definitely is something here when you've got a little smiley face like that. But good to see you all tuning in. I hope you're all doing well on this Tuesday evening, all set for some absolutely fantastic racing action ahead as Rob Armstrong makes his way on through turn number 5. Now, as he makes his way on around here, will Armstrong get himself comfortably set and ready to go, and rolling on down towards turn number 6. And as he does a lot of weaving here for the simple reason trying to get as much tyre temperature as possible and just get himself up to speed. Now, what do you need to qualify well here at the Circuito de Jerez? Well, you need to have a mastery of your car and also a muscle memory of this circuit. Muscle memory is the most important part of Jerez for the simple reason with the number of flying corners around here, you need to be absolutely pinpoint precise on when you start returning to throttle and also when you return to full throttle in particular. It's not good enough just to be able to nail your braking point into each and every corner. You've also got to be able to carry all the speed towards the corner apex. So trail braking is a must around here, and when it's all put together, the difference between a lap where you nail your braking point and you eventually return to full throttle, and when you nail your braking point, you nail that trail braking approach, you hit the apex spot on and also return to throttle exactly the right time and use all the circuit width, or it could be the equivalent of 5 to 8 tenths over the entirety of the lap, as we do see Armstrong rolling his way now through turns 11 and 12, getting himself set very short and doing a bit more weave in there, really trying to find that temperature in the tyres as he heads down into turn number 13. Into hairpin he goes, Lorenzo hairpin, and as he does, coming on through, goes overly deep, and this is to set himself up for the best possible run out the corner. And now coming on through, we jump aboard here with Rob Armstrong for a flying lap of the red circuit. Now powering his way up through the gearbox up towards turn number 1, bringing the car over to the left hand side for the opening braking zone and braking about 100 metres of corner apex down to second gear. Plenty of apex curves, he rotates the car on through, now heading out towards turn number 2. Onto the brakes once more, about 50 metres of apex down to second gear. Now brings the car slightly over to the right before turning over the apex curve at 3. Lets the car drift out to the outside as he now turns in for turn number 4. Balances the throttle there, about 90% throttle application. As he heads out to turn 4 up towards 5. Bring the car to left. Right, nice and late here, get the nose to bite, he doesn't quite do so there, just carries a bit too much speed. I think Armstrong will look to correct that next time around, but as he exits turn number 5 and makes his way down towards 6, and when you can imagine if he gets it absolutely right, he'll be carrying speeds in excess of 150 miles an hour, instead of braking from 147 this time, as he comes on through, tries that hairpin there, going through turn number 6 and up towards 7. Now here's a double left complex, which is all about finding the approach for each corner and carrying the speed. 4th gear here as he exits turn 7, now onto the brakes here for turn number 8, coming all the way down the gearbox to 3rd gear, and then getting back on the power nice. So you've got plenty of runoff area to use there, then bring the car back over to the left to turn number 9. Now going for Ángel Nieto and heading it up towards turn number 10, 2nd gear, and going into the right hand here. It's more of a lift rather than dabbing the brake, but as he comes on through, taking plenty of apex curve now in towards turn number 11, Charging through the right-hander, lift off the throttle, upshift to full to provide stability to the car. Flat out for Ferrari at turn number 12. You can see the fight in with the steering wheels. The car gets unsettled over the apex and braking at about 110 metres from corner apex to the final corner. Down to second gear, down to first gear. And well, that is a lap of the Jerez circuit as Armstrong now makes his way onto another flying lap. And well, it was compromised to be fair at turn number 5, but we'll see now from the exterior pictures he makes his way onto the next one where he'll look to remedy the mistakes of this first lap as he comes on around. As he makes way through 1 and up towards 2, coming down towards the braking zone here for the right-hander, the UKSimRacing Moss driver in a car which is definitely not known for its politeness or kindness, if you will, with regards to throttle application. The Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine. This is one of those cars which is widely regarded as one of those, if you're not smart with the throttle, it is going to bite your foot off. For the simple reason, it has a lot of power available to it with that 6.3 litre V8 engine, naturally aspirated, no supercharger bolted on there. Indeed, an engine which powers other GT3 class machinery as well, including the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, a lesser known fact if you will. The Vantage taking the Mercedes V8 power plant and strapping 2 turbos to it. But as Armstrong makes his way through turn number 6 and up towards 7, we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that this circuit was banned from hosting Formula 1 events. Now you're probably wondering, well, why is that? Now I can't quite remember which year in which it did host the European Formula 1 Grand Prix. I do believe it may have been in 1995, but regardless, what happened in one of the Grand Prix was that the local mayor of Jerez de la Frontera decided to present one of the winning drivers on the podium with their trophy rather than allow a representative from Daimler AMG Benz to give the trophy over, which was meant to be as part of the structure of the day or the script of the day. And because of that infringement, the FIA decided that they would ban Jerez from hosting the Formula 1 Grand Prix for a good number of years. So just a little bit of knowledge there, perhaps not necessary. It may end up in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire one day, but as Armstrong makes his way out of the final corner, going overly deep there, and well, the final corner definitely making him not a millionaire there, as he does improve by 4.5 tenths, but still trying to find a bit more time out there and trying to find those braking points. But he still does have the best part of 4 minutes to go in this qualifying session, and as he comes in towards the right-hander too, now getting himself set and rolling on down in towards turn number 3. And I think Armstrong at this point, he's made mistakes on the first 2 laps, but that's the thing as well, when you have a 10-minute qualifying session and you have plenty of laps available to you, with the lap time around here being at 1 2/3 minutes. If you do a bit of quick mathematics, that does mean you're going to get about 5 laps on the board, depending on the rate at which you push around. In fact, for Armstrong, it may only be 4, given the fact he had quite a slow out lap and decided to really focus on tyre temperature. And I think he's put all the fuel he needs in the car to do a grand total of 4 to 5 fast laps. As he comes on down now, he can start to enact that perfectionism, if you will, and making sure he doesn't miss any points. And already we've seen it on the first half of lap this time around. He's absolutely hitting those apexes coming on through. And the V8 from Germany now absolutely roaring as he comes down towards turn number 8 there. And number 8, a very deceptive corner. In fact, you want to get back to full throttle as soon as possible to use all the width, but then you've got to swing the car to the left-hand side, as you see Armstrong do so there pictorially, and going through turn number 9 and up towards 10. And as he rolls on through here, much simpler run through turns 9 and 10 after you make that direction change. Now into 11 and 12, this corner can catch out your driver so easily, given the fact you've got to be as close as possible to full throttle, and in full throttle for Ferrari. But now coming down in to the turn 13 hairpin onto the brakes this time around, and getting it nicely done as he comes on out here, and well, as he rolls off the corner and his way towards the timeline. And I think it's going to be a significantly improved lap this time around, and indeed as he crosses the line, it's improved by 3 tenths once again. So for Armstrong, definitely those laps continue to trickle on down here as we are heading through dusk at the moment, and from what I'm hearing, we will be seeing the race transition into night time, which is going to make it even more of a spectacle. And if I look back through the catalogue of UKSimRacing's GT3 League history, the last time we visited Spain and had a night race, it was the endurance race in, I believe, season 8 at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. It was an absolute thriller under the night lights. Indeed, in the elite class in particular, we've had some phenomenal battles, and I do wonder whether we're going to see more of those here today. Indeed, Spain has had a president for absolutely generated some fantastic action over the course of the GT3 League's history, and well, Jerez is no slouch to that. We did see it in season 10 when it made its debut on the iRacing simulator platform, and our drivers absolutely loved it, and it's back here again as we do say hello to Jay Winks, also also there to Rob Armstrong, and also to Stuart Pearson, and also Sam Sherwood, Joe Newman-Price there as well, and we've also got Darren at Sharple. So hello to you all. And indeed, if you haven't said hello at the moment and you're sat there in the chat feeling a little bit shy, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi, for the simple reason we don't bite here at UK Sim Racing, and indeed we welcome everybody to our community. But as we do see Armstrong now coming towards the end of what will likely be his final flying lap here, bit of a compromise in sectors 1 and 2 this time around. Sector 3 has gone purple, going in to the final corner here, a corner that has eluded him a little bit over the course of the lap. We've seen him go deep, but less and less deep, and absolutely spot on that time around. We're getting it perfect for the final time of asking as he heads out towards the timeline. What's it going to be for Armstrong? It is a 37 there, 37.943. We're not going to know how that fits in compared to his peers until the end of the qualifying session and we go to the grid, but I think Armstrong definitely feeling as though he's done the work he needs to do there, and now we'll have to see for the 45 driver whether it's enough to put him on pole, as we're only moments away from going to the grid. But as we do, it's a quiet circuit at the moment. I'll tell you one thing, it definitely won't be quiet when we've got 46 GT3 class cars roaring their way out towards the start finish line to go green flag racing, and well, we are now only 30 seconds away from getting underway. Just to confirm next, we can see a number of you asking in the chat or talking about the fact today's broadcast is post-round and therefore not live. All broadcasts from round number 3 this coming Sunday will be live from circuit side. We do apologise for that, it's just the way it's worked out from a planning and scheduling perspective. But indeed, I'll be back in the commentary booth live from circuit side going forward from round number 3. But let's focus on round number 2, as it is now time for us to make our way over to the grid. And this is how they line up for our race today at the Circuito de Jerez. Well, in fact, not quite yet. We do have to wait for the transition from the pre-warm-up going into the race itself. But thankfully, due to a little bit of replay magic, we can skip forward to the next session. And indeed, as our drivers now make their way to the grid, this is how they line up for our sprint race today. Damien Lobbett takes pole position in the elite class and overall for Symphony Esports, joined on the front row by championship contender and leader Erik Røseth for Racing Lab Esports AM. Mark Davison starts P3 for UKSimRacing Price, with Sam Sherwood behind P4 for ProTech Motorsport, and then Ryan Moles and Ryan Davies, the two Ryans make up your third row for ProTech Motorsport and Tiki Simsport Kimi respectively. Andy Jones starts P7 for AI Race Summaries DCW Racing, joined on the fourth row by Reece Saunders for Team Year 1, and then behind them on row number 5 to complete the top 10 is Hekon Gustad for Ignium Motorsport, the defending elite champion, and Aaron McGregor, your pro pole sitter there, starting at P10 and carrying on, it would seem, from where he left off at Fuji. On the 6th row of the grid, it's Martin Tillin for Tiki Simsport Kimi, joined by Empire Motorsport's Joe Newman, and as we continue down to row number 7, it's Sam Congreve for Empire Motorsport making his debut today, and Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars. Chris Kirtland starts P15 on the 8th row of the grid for Downforce Racing, joined by Darren Sharple for UKSimRacing Price, with Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing and Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing making up your 9th row. Row number 10 goes to the parent of Casper Tunstead, and on the Peak Sim Racing drive we have Daniel Pace for Old Dudes in Cars, and then we have behind them on row number 11 Pete Cox for UK Sim Racing Clark, a difficult qualifying session for the UK Sim Racing drive. He'll need to try and redeem himself in the race, and then it's Seaman Andre Livingston who completes the 11th row for Racing Lab Esports AM, and with that takes pole position in the AM class. Behind him on row number 12, it's Stein Arsani for Racing Lab Esports AM2, joined by Alan Lever for UK Sim Racing Bryce. And on row number 13, we have Nathan Scott for Empire Motorsport and Chris Constable for UK Sim Racing Moss. We've got Matt Strand and Bevan Thompson making up the 14th row of the grid for Racing Lab Esports AM3 and the Privateer outfit. We now have Aaron Beaver and Neil Smith making up the top 30 there, completing it on the 15th row of the grid, with the Privateer out qualifying the disaster prone racing drive, but Neil Smith once again putting in a good qualifying stint to put a P3 in class. And Mark Johnson starts just outside the top 30 there for UK Sim Racing Clark on the what is the 16th row of the grid, joined by Alexander Tremino McAlson for Racing Lab Esports AM. On round number 17, Matt Edmondson for UK Sim Racing Clark on his first round of the season there, head of Giles Phillips for Phillips GP. And on row number 18, it's Stephen Parker Hamilton, joined by Rob Armstrong, the TPA Racing driver, just out qualifying the UK Sim Racing Moss driver. And then behind them on row number 19, it's James Connolly for UK Sim Racing Moss and Lewis Payne for ProTech Academy. Row 20 goes to the parent of Jack Wyborn and Matt Maddox as they complete your top 40 for TPA Racing and the Privateer outfit respectively, with Sean Gaffney and Marvin Cruz lined up on row number 21 for Simulation Motorsport and Bike Racing. Row number 22 goes to Kerry Corin for Downforce Racing and Paul Joseph Glift for Olympus Esports. And on the final row of the grid, it's Ricky Pink for Aspire Racing Team and BJ Alvarez for Team Sim Racing Chicago. Both drivers not getting a lap on the board, and they will start at the back of the field. But as the field makes its way around on the full formation lap here, We do look towards the front of the field, and indeed to what is there, the driver of Damien Lobbett, your pole sitter for today, and the 7 Esports driver run. It affects Esports delivery by the looks of things there, so a little bit of a crossover between Affect Esports and 7 Esports, although that could be, to be fair, a little bit of a glitch with regards to deliveries. We're not shy to the fact Trading Paints does, our livery provider, have glitches every so often. As the 666 driver makes his way up towards turn number 9, Erik Røseth with him there, and as they come on through, and in towards turn number 9, well, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, the tension is absolutely palpable right now as our drivers make the way around, and we look back from the gearbox of Damien Lobbett's car here, and indeed he is leading a field of 46 cars on through turn number 10 right now. They're only 3 corners and a green flag zone away from going racing for 45 minutes here at Jerez. We're going to be heading into the night. The headlights are already full on, and indeed as the light descends, we'll be able to tell you who's where and who is bound in whom. We can keep track of that for you, but right now as daylight fades, Damien Lobbett gets ready to kick the ignition into action, and who is going to be the winner after 45 minutes of racing, we'll have to wait and find out as the safety car gets ready to pull on in. You already see the field being backed up there as they start to concertina together, and we are only now moments away from green flag. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the season as Lobbett gets up to speed nice and early, and as they charge out towards turn number 1, it's already a scramble in the midfield here as I try to charge up the hill. Some flashing lights there as Ryan Moll side by side with Sam Sherwood, the 2 Protect Motorsport drivers trying to avoid one another as they come into turn number 2. Meanwhile, Reece Saunders looking for the move there as he looks up the inside of what's Ryan Davies. Davies having to find a bit of space there to accommodate the two of them, but as they come down through turn number 3, plenty of battles further back. Heckelgestad as well looking for the move versus Joe Newman. In fact, Newman trying to make ground here. He's already gained 1 place. He's going to gain 2 at this rate, and as they make the way up towards turn number 5 for the first time of asking, coming on through the right hand, we've heard that Damien Lobbett's got it already wrong, coming out of turn number 3 and 4, and now has been towed into the pits. So with that, now it's a shake up at the front of the field. Mark Davidson leads this race as our drivers battle their way down towards turn number 5, and coming into the braking zone they go. Martin Tinley looking up the inside there versus where's Ryan Davies. These two exchanging blows here as the McLaren MP412C driver tries to make some progress, but Davies there falling into the side as he makes his way through turn number 7, through the double F they go, and Tinley has to back out. Meanwhile, in the pro class, well, things have got very tensive here behind as Casper Bronner's lost 1 place to Chris Kirkland. Meanwhile, Richard Jones side by side here with Casper Tugstead in the battle for P4 in class as they make the way into the right hander at turn number 9 now, and coming on through they've got a bumper hanging off slightly, I do believe, for Casper Bronner's car. I think that's in fact the paint job on the car, which gives you the impression the bumper may be coming off at any moment. And as they make the way towards turn number 11, running through the right hander at the moment, Richard Jones holding Casper Tugstead at bay, but the slow and steady racing drive definitely feeling the pressure as they come towards the end of 1 lap of racing. But as they make the way down towards turn number 13, and round the outside there, Casper Bronner goes to try and hold position. Jones looks up the inside, but Bronner gets a good run. And as they make the way up towards turn number 1, it's Mark Davidson who leads the UKSimRacing prize header. Erik Røseth P2, Ryan Moles P3, Sam Sherwood P4, Reece Saunders in P5, ahead of Joe Newman P6. And there is go with that Joe Newman there with a little bit of connectivity issues, but he does rematerialise from the ether. Heckelgestad P7 for Indian Motorsport ahead of Aaron McGregor, who is currently your pro leader. Great start from McGregor, 2 places gained overall, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 3 and 4, Sam Colgreen behind him, Andy Jones P10, and Ryan Davies best on P11 as people going around as Andy Jones into the wall, and the AI Race Summary DCW racing driver there just getting a little bit too greedy with the throttle, it would seem, not letting the car settle on the exit of turn number 4, and will now have to try and get the car turned around, but that knock to the tyre barrier is not going to do him any good. But meanwhile, looking further down the order, here is Steinar Sani, your AM leader at this point in time. He's currently running in P19. He's got the pressure of Nathan Scott, with Nathan Scott looking up the inside. And while I think this might be a little bit of classic fast here from Scott, I don't think the two of them want to battle one another too much for the simple reason they both got their own races, albeit there Steinar Sani digging in, and Scott's being made to wait a little bit longer. And well, with that in mind, Steinar Sani right now is not with too much pressure on into the next driver in AM Class P2. It's Racing Lab Esports AM driver, and therefore his teammate Simon Andre Livingston in what is the number 3 car there. He's running P22 behind Matt Strand at the head of Alan Lever. And then we have in P3, where's Stephen Parker Hamilton, the TPA racing driver in the wonderful pink and blue livery Porsche. right now. A good start from Park Hamilton, gaining 2 places in class, 8 overall, and now trying to charge on and hunt down the racing lab cars. As into the wall goes the Audi there, avoids Aaron Beaver, and Beaver getting it wrong on the exit. A Ferrari car into him, and I believe that was Sean Gaffney from Simulation Motorsport who's got it very wrong there. As we've got a car, that's Rob Armstrong going overly deep in the run on through turn number 13. As they make the way onto a third lap, there's already been some early drama in this race as they make the way up towards turn number 1 once again. Armstrong trying to make a move here versus Matt Maddox, and Maddox in return just holding the outside of the classic yellow machine as they make the way into the brakes over turn number 2, and Armstrong can't poke his way through at the moment. But as they make the way on around, we look up towards Joe Newman, who has got Heckelstad right behind them as they come down towards turn number 6. Always now the third time of asking, and well, this is the battle for P6 overall and in elite class as they onto the brakes. Heckelstad looks at a move here. Newman's going to try and outbrake him, but both drivers there trying to out-edge one another, and indeed Newman there holding the line firmly as they come in towards turn number 6, and Heckelstad being made to wait his turn as we ride on board here with the BMW M4 driver. Now going for the left-hander there at turn number 8. I think at this point in the race, Heckelstad's got more pace compared to Newman, but he's just not able to find a way on through, and Newman able to use the V10 Audi machinery in the back of that Lambo in terms of its power plant in order to be able to keep his rival at bay. But as they make the way up towards turns 11 and 12, well, this is where Heckelstad, I think, will feel the pain of running in the dirty out of another GT3 car. He just won't be able to carry the speed as he dips the left-hand side tyres into the gravel, has to straighten the steering wheel, albeit it looks like he didn't make a mistake, and indeed not costly, but he comes down to 13. You can see just how hard he's pushing right now. This is going to bite into his tyre life as they make the way up towards turn number 1, and once again waiting behind here as they go on to lap number 4, and as they do, Reece Saunders sets the fastest lap race at 36.899. Heckelstad now looking to the outside. They're trying to get Newman to make a mistake here, trying for a cut back out of 1. Heckelstad gets a good exit here. Will it be enough? Newman sees it coming and blocks the inside there. He can position himself well, can Newman, but as they make the way through, every move like this, that's going to cost Newman time. Heckelstad now tries to cut it back at 3. Can't find it. Newman really started to put up a wall here. Aaron McGregor behind, just watching the popcorn seat view. You can see him then the little TV console in the centre of Heckelstad's car. Indeed, that acts as his rearview mirror, if you will. If he can't look to the rearview mirror, that's to the right of him as they make the way through turn number 5. No progress with Heckelstad right now. He's got all the moves in the right places, but Newman in return can counter him left, right and centre as they now come down towards turn number 6, and this time Heckelstad not able to anticipate or entice an opportunity. But as they make the way out to the right-hander hairpin, meanwhile, a little bit further down the road, we've got Neil Smith here, who's had a very difficult start to proceed today for Disaster Prone Racing. He's down in P37 and currently P10 in AM class, having started in what was P3 in class. He runs very wide there at turn number 5, brings the car back together. That's James Conley who goes on around, and Conley takes the P10 off of Smith, and the Disaster Prone Racing driver having a difficult one. But as they make the way in towards turn number 5, we have had a number of cars come into the pit lane, and they have taken fast repairs already. That does include Sean Gaffney for that instant earlier on that we did see with the Audi of Aaron Beaver. We also have Matt Edmondson having off track. We've seen him come into the pits. Also Kerry Corin, Giles Phillips, Andy Jones, Damien Lovett and Aaron Beaver. Damien Lovett has had to retire, I do believe, after that incident on the open lap, and Andy Jones as well. Aaron Beaver, I believe, is still in service in the pit lane. But as our drivers continue on around it, we have had some early retirees, but meanwhile the action is still full and in the thick of it as we look back to the top 5 right now. And indeed, Erik Røseth trying to find his way past Davidson, and the UKSimRacing driver leading this race right now, digging in as much as he can here for the simple reason if he can make the drivers behind and take a lot of life out of the tyres, and he will naturally be able to break away a bit. Davidson's got to be careful there as he almost puts the wheel wide over the gravel, and as they come through turn number 5, Davidson being made to push this as they brawl their way out of 5 once again. And as they come on down, we can see there Reece Saunders, the odd one out in the back of this quintuplet of cars, being the BMW, all German machinery, but 4 Porsches and 1 BMW as they come into the braking zone. You definitely tell that 992 is a popular car this season, but still Saunders are trying to buck the trend here, and credit to the man as he makes his way in towards turn number 6. But from then we look back to Aaron McGregor here, who right now continues to watch Heckelstad and Newman battle, with Sam Congreve and Ryan Davies having their own little scrap behind him for P9, P10 overall. And as the tease is what Kimmy driver makes way for Pat Congreve, P8 we should say. P10 behind it is Martin Tilling, who's also trying to get involved in this. And then we do have second place pro driver of Chris Kirkland, and Kirkland right now moving on here as he makes way for turns 9 and 10. The downforce racing driver trying to make a bit more headway, as meanwhile with a bit further back to Ryan Walker, who's just had an off track at turn number 8. And meanwhile, whilst all that's happened, We've got Pandemonium here, further back Alan Lever, and what is, I believe, Mark Johnson off, and also Simon Andre Livingston. We didn't see what happened, but all three drivers have come together at turn number 9, and what I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, turn 9 and Racing Lab Esports and do not mix at the Jerez circuit. For those of you with an eagle-eyed memory, you'll remember the battle between Mark Johnson and Steinar Sani, where Sani was putting the pressure on Johnson last season and got it all wrong at turn number 9 and went round at that same corner, with no contact with another car. But today it has gone wrong for Simon Andre Livingston, and so his UKSimRacing peers. We've got a car pointing the wrong way, and that, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, was Paul Joseph Callisto's pointing the wrong way at turn number 11. So it's going so wrong for so many in the mid to back field. But meanwhile, in the front of the field, the racing is as tight as it always is. But now I say that, and we look to Neil Smith here right now, running P9 in the AM class. He's got the pressure cats for Bronner in P36 as they make the way in towards turn number 2. And we're right now the AM driver ahead of the pro driver, and I think the pro very eager to swap things over as meanwhile, as they come down and around, we have had an instant for Steinar Sani, who has recently rejoined, and will the lead of the AM class now has gone away from Racing Lab Esports AM2's driver. I believe we're off track at turn, what is their turn number 5? Unless I'm mistaken. Oh, it's all happening, we're not looking at it, and with that, it does mean that now your new AM leader is this man, Stephen Parker Hamilton, the TPA Racing driver, who's just keeping his cool, not making any mistakes. It's making headway, and now second place in the AM class is Jack Wyborn, the other TPA Racing class. The TPA Racing looking for a 1-2 in the AM class currently, albeit they've got a long way to go as darkness continues to descend here in Spain, and as they make the way through 10 and up towards 11, more right now is absolutely as a storm here in terms of anything can happen at any moment as Wyborn continues his way on through, and now will be very eager to find his way past Tremino Michelsen, the pro driver in front, and then go hunting after the AM win. As they come through turn number 13, and meanwhile we look from these drivers a little bit further behind. This is Matt Maddox versus what is that, I do believe, Lewis Payne. Payne being on the outside of the road, Maddox being on the inside of the road. This is the battle of the two Porsches. Maddox in the yellow machine that's missing the headlight. Meanwhile, Payne in the silver black machine as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 1. And Maddox being made to wait behind the pro driver as we see Mark Johnson and Chris Constable getting involved here. And the two pros in battle out with one another, albeit from UKSimRacing, both of them from sister teams. So therefore won't want to take too much time out of one another. They won't want to make headway and cooperate as they do so. As they come down through turn 3 and 4 and onwards towards 5 they go. You can definitely see here how they are starting to feel, I think, as though they're being held up slightly in the run behind Payne and Maddox, and therefore they'd like to make some progress. They've got to pick off Maddox first. Maddox is not going to let this go immediately as they come down towards turn number 6. Well, Johnson looks up the inside here. Maddox puts the car centre right of the road from our camera's perspective. That's centre outside. Johnson on the brakes, gets it stopped just in time. Front brakes are definitely going to fill that one as they come out of 6 towards 7. Smooth move from Johnson, moves them up to what is a P28 overall as we do take a look at those over the top 35 standings on the left hand side of your screen there, ladies and gentlemen. Remembering that all the points accrued in this championship are class points, but meanwhile, speaking of class, here's the elite drivers of Sam Sherwood versus Reece Saunders as our top 5 continues to squabble. Saunders looking up the inside of Sherwood. This is a position as they come on through 1, and as they do, Saunders has had enough away in door contact between the two of them as they come down towards 2, and Sherwood manages to outrun Saunders to the corner, but he outbrakes himself as well, gives Saunders another opportunity, but down through 3, Saunders on the outside, Sherwood on the inside coming into 4. Well, Saunders will give him every bit of space here in order to set himself up for a run through 5 into 6. We know the BMW is a little bit faster on the straights if it's able to nail the corners up versus the Porsche, but that's exactly where the Porsche absolutely delivers, is on corner approach, and as they make the way down the back straight here towards turn number 6, well, Saunders is within 2 tenths, but I think that's going to be an eager move under brake of the BMW. He thinks about it, he goes, and Sherwood squeezes him as much as he can, but he can't squeeze him off entirely, and as they coming out, a bit more contact between the two of them, they're keeping it light and sensible at the moment, albeit Sherwood really now to entrench himself in here, and I think losing sight of the top 3 will be frustrating for the pair of them, but this battle is critical to the both of them. In the fact, I think Saunders feels so he's the faster driver at this point in the race. Sherwood just does not want to lose position, and as they come through 9 and into 10, well, Sherwood holds off Saunders for the time being, but the gap to Moles in front is 1.3 seconds as they make the way up towards turn number 11. Absolutely class racing between the two of them, like you say there, Alex, in the YouTube chat, and right now Sherwood holding on to the position, and Saunders, to be fair, showing his championship credentials here. He's looking very fast that BMW M4, and I wonder whether he can potentially spring a charge later on in this race today. As they make the way onwards towards another lap. Meanwhile, further down the order, we look to Jack Whiteboard is closing on the back there of Wes Alexander Trujillo Mikkelsen, looking for that P21 position, and with it the opportunity to then go hunting after Parker Hamilton, the leader of the AM class, of course Whiteboard, an AM driver himself. And as they make the way through turn number 13, we show you now the class standings once again on the left hand side of your screen, and well, not too many changes quite recently with class position with the top 5 as they make the way up towards turn number 1. Whiteboard here behind Trujillo Mikkelsen, looking up for that potential move, still just not able to eke it out at the moment. But meanwhile, we'll look a bit further back. AMG Power here trying to go for a move versus Lewis Payne. That's Mark Johnson, who has been right on board with the AMG driver. Absolutely mishandles it into turn number 1, being on the outside line, understandably, with the power at low speed that the Mercedes delivers to its rear tyres. It's a very tricky car to get right with regards to power application in first and second gear. But as he comes through turn number 4, has to back off here versus Payne. Going out the left and into the right now, turn number 5. The thing that's going to be in the mind of Johnson is the fact that he can get a good run here. He might be able to drag Payne for an opportunity to battle on the brakes. Payne with a slow run out the corner. This is going to be Johnson's chance as they made the way down towards 6. If he can get within 1.5 tenths, he could go for it on the brakes, but decides not to. I think just feeling as though Johnson could. Right now, Johnson could be better off letting Payne make a mistake here, but given the fact that Payne had an absolutely abysmal run out of turn number 5, not able to get the apex set up and therefore not carrying the speed he needed, but still safe for Johnson for the time being. But interesting now with Maddox and Constable behind, and in fact Constable making the move there in the distance versus Matt Maddox. They make the way up towards turn number 9. It's going to be Constable going around the outside of Maddox as they look at the distant view, and as they come on through, Chris Constable still side by side, but finally clears Maddox going through 10 and gains overall position P29. But as they come down through the right hand at turn number 11 into 12, meanwhile looking from them to what is your race leader in the pro class. This is Aaron McGregor, and well, this is Aaron McGregor like you've not seen him before in this season of the championship. He's got pressure on him right now, and that is second place pro driver Chris Kirkland, who is all over the back of the ProTech Motorsport driver. Now McGregor's pace over the last couple of laps has been with Kirkland, albeit Kirkland has been gaining by 2 tenths a lap on average, and I do wonder here what's gone wrong for McGregor. Has there been some sort of damage detected on the car? Alternatively, is he not taking that damage on the car? If there's nothing wrong with the car, then could it be that he's decided to limit the pace of the machine right now and instead of opts a fuel save to give himself strategic advantage? Then again, letting Kirkland get this close is not necessarily an advantage right now, albeit it will help him take some life out of Kirkland's tyres if Kirkland is made to sit there in the draft of his Ferrari for a long time. But McGregor definitely on a knife edge right now, and he's got Casper Tunstead and Darren Sharples behind, and it's the top 4 of the AM class all occupying the same real estate on your TV screens as they make their way through 10 and up towards 11 they go. But as they do, we look back to at the rear of this quartet of what is there, McGregor, Kirkland, Tunstead and Sharples, to look at the UKSimRacing price driver of Darren Sharples. Dudley's known to friends, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 13. Well, right now they've got Pete Cox behind him, another UKSimRacing driver. Well, I think we'll be studying this and thinking, okay, I need to think about strategy here, given the fact my teammates in front of me, and I do not want to necessarily interrupt their race, and they're going to be focused on what lies ahead and not me coming up from behind. As they make their way in towards turn number 1, we're almost in the window where the potential undercut pit stops are now possible. Indeed, around that 17 to 19 minute mark, depending on the circuit. And when you see pit stops go as deep as 37 to 38 minutes, particularly with now the rise of the fuel tank allowance to 50% at the start of the race, it does mean we have a lot more strategic variety. That pit window is expanded to a 20-minute window now, and it gives to the craft a lot more potential strategic racing action, as well as the tactical action you see on circuit, which we all know and love. But as the top 4 of the AM class here stay in procession for now. Meanwhile, we look to the leader of the elite class and over on this is Mark Davison, who's right on board the gearbox of and look back from as the UKSimRacing prize driver here, definitely still under pressure from Erik Røseth. And Røseth here today trying to make it the win that got away at Fuji. They return at Mark Davison trying to make it his first win of the season as they come down towards the turn at number 9, and as they do, we'll hear the long line of Porsche machines with Saunders and the BMW in the back of it, all behind Davison right now and thinking about how they can get involved here as they make the way in towards turns 11 and 12. We say hello to Carl McGuire in the YouTube chat. Try to roll the way on through and up towards turn 13. 18 minutes since race, almost concluded by the time they get to the start-finish line. But Mark Davison may be leading this race, but he's certainly by no means clear of his opponents as they make the way onwards towards another lap. The pressure is on to Dawson, Røseth, Moles, Sherwood and Saunders, with Joe Newman 1.5 seconds back and still trying to find a way to get himself into this battle for the overall win. As they come through, meanwhile we do look back to what is your AM drivers here, and well, we have had a change of AM top 3 quite recently, and this has happened off camera, and it's been a mistake from Stephen Parker Hamilton, we believe, for TPA Racing's driver, which has seen him drop down a P3 in class behind Steinar Sani, who's now in P2 in class once again, and Jack Wyborn, who was coming up behind him, and the other TPA Racing car now leads in the AM class by 2.2 seconds, and Wyborn pushing on as we hear Chris Constable has come into the pits, and we do believe for Constable it's his first pit stop under strategy, and it'll be his only pit stop under strategy most likely, and therefore we are starting to see some of those pit stops. But meanwhile, we look up to the pro cars here, and it's a poor run out of 5 for McGregor. McGregor's on left-hand picture behind Kirkland. Kirkland takes the lead. Tunstead around the outside there, and Tunstead's going all in. McGregor at this point looking very vulnerable in the race as they come up towards turn number 6 now, and Chris Kirkland leads. Tunstead takes P2 on the Peak Sim Racing driver here, galvanised I think by what's happened, and now be trying to keep McGregor at bay until after Kirkland. But if these two fight, Kirkland has a golden opportunity here to try and run this one to the distance, and well, he'll just try and creep it away as much as possible as they go through turns 11 and 12, but rolling on through right now. This is an absolutely major change at the front of the field of the pro cars, and well, whatever's happened to McGregor, we haven't got anything on data to say that he's had an off track, but look, in fact we have had something to say he had an off track. It was off track at 5, oh my good lord, and there's contact there as Chris Kirkland goes off circuit, and I think contact with Casper Tunstead, unless I'm mistaken, and with that, well, that one I think managed to go to the stewards afterwards, as now Kirkland's poor run out of turn number 12 has cost it very dear. Although I think Tunstead would argue there's nowhere he could go in the end if he'd lifted off the throttle. His car would have gone around as well. Such is the nature of the boys. You've got to keep some throttle in when you go through sweeping ice mid corners. Otherwise that rear lets go and you get off out oversteer effectively, or lift off oversteer as we like to say. But as they make the way down towards turn number 4, well, now Tunstead leads the pro class with McGregor behind. Darren Sharp was only 4 tenths off, but you could not make this up in the pro class right now. This is a very different complexion compared to what we saw at Fuji, and we're not complaining. We love to see it, albeit we'd love to have seen Kirkland up here, but he has recovered. He's in P5, but he's definitely had a bit of a shake-up in terms of his race as McGregor under pressure from Sharples. And well, what can we read into this in terms of McGregor's run out of 5 into 6? There's nothing out of turn 5 and 6. There's nothing wrong there with regards to McGregor's line. I think McGregor right now is running a lot more downforce than that Ferrari compared to what his peers running on those Porsches, and in return it's cost him straight line speed, albeit he's getting great cornering speed. He's able to match the Porsche through the corners, but as soon as he gets into the straight, it does look as though the car's just not able to pull away. But as they make the way up through turns 9 and 10 here, and onwards towards 11 once again, Tunstead right now not breaking away. So again, could McGregor potentially be playing a game of some fuel saving here and trying to just skip his way back into a lead through strategy, or cut his way back up to lead? We say we'll have to wait and see. But definitely things are looking tenuous, as that is a car in the gravel in the rear picture. That's Joe Newman, who was battling at the time for P6 in the elite class with Heckle Gestad. Unfortunately, we can't get a replay of what's happened for the Empire Motorsport driver, who made a lot of early gains, was absolutely brazen and brave on the brakes. Now it's all gone wrong. He's coming into the pits for a fast repair, and what will be his scheduled stop? He'll have to change his strategy here, but he's got the window open to do it as he makes his way into pit lane. But as he does, meanwhile, looking further down the order, we still got some other battles going on here, including a Casper Brotner right now trying to chase on and after Neil Smith, and this is for effectively P29 overall. Both drivers in different classes, Brotner being the pro driver, and meanwhile Smith being the AM driver, and both their own aspirations. With Smith trying to chase down Ricky Pink, and meanwhile Brotner trying to chase after what will effectively be an opportunity to go hunting. We believe it would be Lewis Payne in actuality in the battle for P8 in the pro class, at least on circuit. As the drivers come through, we're hearing that Sean Gaffney has had to be towed to the pitch due to damage picked up on the most recent lap. I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm not quite sure what's happened, however, but looking from towards the back of the field, back up towards the front of the field. No pit stops yet for our top 4, and here are our top 5 in fact. Mark Davison, the UKSimRacing Price driver, still holding on to this lead as he makes his way up through turn number 10, turn number 11 into 12, and as they roar the way on around right now and up towards turn number 13, Well, it does look as though Davison here really under pressure now. And well, when you're in this position, leading and going a bit deep there, turn number 13, mistake I was going to say, but Davison's already cut my words for me. Mistakes are so easy to make here. And Røseth getting one out of Davison as they make their way up towards turn number 1. Does not look for the move, however, as we jump on board with your second place driver and one of the joint leaders in the elite class going into this round. As he comes in towards turn number 2, it looks up the inside. It's a bold move from the Race Lab Esports Lab driver. Side by side they exit. Can Davison hook it into turn 3 on the inside? He can, but as they do, they both squirm for traction as they come through 4. And now Røseth trying to hold it outside to inside into 5. He does. He finds some space today. Meanwhile, off circuit it goes. I believe that's Sam Sherwood taking an inside line on Ryan Moles and the Protect Motorsport drivers. They're trying to avoid one another, and Ryan Moles taking the scenic route to return to the tarmac as they make their way down towards turn number 6. And Reece Saunders, meanwhile, we're looking in front of him thinking, okay, now's my turn. But meanwhile, Moles says, no, you can wait your turn, thank you very much. Only one move at a time. But as they make their way out of turn number 5 and up towards 6, again, it's like a power keg waiting to be ignited. And what, I think we get a couple of short fuses or blown fuses right now, but when it is fully ignited and it goes, this battle for the lead is going to explode on our screens. They make their way up towards turn number 9 once again. We're at the halfway point of this race. Pit stops are now very much truly underway, but our top 5 in the elite class with Erik Røseth only at 1.1 seconds behind and potentially making it a top 6 at this point on camera. Well, it's very close between them all as they make their way in towards the front of the end of the lap. And who's going to come into the pits this time around, if anybody? Does anybody side pinning? Reece Saunders goes in, so he's decided to go for the undercut. He's got nothing to lose technically as he's at the back of this group, so therefore he can afford the undercut and calls everybody else to react to him. Now with that in mind, we'll have to wait and see when he gets clear space out of the circuit, as meanwhile in the battle for the pro lead, here is your pro leader Casper Tunstead for Aaron McGregor 1.4 seconds back, and the big sim racing driver right now charging on, and the Dane is absolutely flying. It must be said, after taking the lead of the class, he's showing no signs of holding back. Last lap was only what was there. In fact, I say was only, he was 7/10 faster than McGregor. I think McGregor's having to battle with Sharpers behind, and that may explain some of it. But Tunstead, to be fair, is putting in the mileage, and it is showing as they make their way down through turns 3 and 4 and up towards 5. But as they come up towards the right-hander of 5 now, it is all going to be battles aplenty as we're hitting the Sam Sherwood has had an off-track moment has let Erik Røseth through for P4, and so in fact Sherwood rejoined, and we look to the Protect Motorsport cars going so that's Martin Tilling looking around the outside. So Sam Sherwood, an absolutely dramatic turn, he has gone off at turn number 5. He's rejoined, but he's lost 3 places at the price of 1 mistake. But that's going to put him out of the battle for the lead for the time being, but can he recover from it? Given the fact that number 71 driver here was looking so strong in the battle for the lead, and now it's gone the wrong way, but it's not over yet. We've got a long way to go. Meanwhile, looking at from inside the top 10, if you will, we're going to look a little bit further down the order very shortly to a battle for P9 in the pro class here, and this is Bevan Thompson versus Chris Kirkland. And you'll remember Chris Kirkland at one point was leading the pro class until an unfortunate incident going through 11 and 12 where he believed the man lost control of the car, had to bring it back together, and then the driver behind the Tunstead may have had contact onto the rear of the car from what we gather, but still that's the should to look at if needed. But Bevan Thompson right now trying to keep Kirkland at bay as they make the way through turn number 5 and down towards 6. They're going in towards the braking zone they go. Well, Kirkland's going to look for the move here. Thompson's not going to fight this one too much. I think he's respectful of the fact that Kirkland has a bit more pace up his sleeve right now, despite the fact they've both pitted, and therefore he wants to try and work with Kirkland to gain race time, I should say, over each and every lap as they get themselves into a mini tongue twister there. And as he comes them through turns at 7 and 8, well, Bevan Thompson there lets Kirkland go for P9. We'll have to wait and see whether they're able to work together in a way in order to gain a bit more time later on in proceedings. But as they come through, Sam Sherwood has taken his pit stop for the day. Meanwhile, as he makes way out the pit lane, here's Reece Saunders will take position back off Sherwood. There's a guarantee of that with Sherwood's mistake. But meanwhile, Sherwood now gets himself back up to speed, but he's not far off of Saunders, interestingly. And in fact, that pit stop time for Sherwood was longer. And I wonder whether Saunders has made a mistake or two. Sherwood makes another error there at turn number 2. Sherwood really struggling since that off now to get himself back into the rhythm and just needs to find his composure. But as he makes his way back up to speed, and hopefully that'll be the end of the moments for the Protect Motorsport driver. Well, he's got a bit of clear space on the circuit in front of him. He's given himself 5 seconds there with that mistake to Reece Saunders, and Rob Armstrong is 1.3 seconds behind, so he won't have to worry about being interrupted here as long as he can get his head down. And that we'll have to wait and see if Sherwood can make a recovery. Meanwhile, into the pit lane, Erik Røseth comes on into the pit, so does Mark Davidson. Ryan Moles, meanwhile, stays out, we do believe, as Heckrstad's in. So Moles has decided to go the longest of everybody in the league class. And I think ProTech Motorsport here opting to split their strategies and trying to get all of their drivers an opportunity to battle for the win of this race, or at least factor into the podium. They'd like to make it a 1-2-3, or at least a 1-2. And Ryan Moles here going long and deciding to take the track position approach. But as they make the way out to turn number 2 and in towards 3. Meanwhile, we do look back to Ryan Davies, who carries on. Aaron McGregor has also carried on, despite the fact that instead of coming to the pits in the lead of the Pro Class, with Darren Sharples right behind McGregor. And Sharples, interestingly, tied himself to McGregor's strategy. And I wonder whether this is the right move for the UKSimRacing prize try. He's been all over the bank with McGregor for the last 5 laps. He's definitely got a lot of pace. In fact, you can see it here as they go into turn 5. He's looking for the move. I think Sharples has made an error with this. He should have come in because he may have been able to go for an undercut. Again, that's our fault from the commentary booth, in a way being the armchair observer here, if you will. But we have to wait and see how it plays out in practice. But Sharples right now, he's definitely got a lot of pace he wants to deploy, and I don't think he's able to do it behind McGregor unless he's trying to get McGregor to make a mistake, or perhaps he feels as though the two of them can outpace Dunstead and company. That's the only other thing I would imagine as they make their way in towards turn 8. As they come through, Peacock's behind, still watching and waiting in the wings here. The elite driver, in case the 2 pros do have a moment, he can sneak his way on through. But as they come on around, meanwhile, making his way through what is their turn number 6, as BJ Alvarez from Team SimRacing Chicago has made a lot of ground in this race, to be fair, having started from what was towards the back of the grid. In fact, starting from the very last spot on the grid in P46, not getting a qualifying time on the board. The Team SimRacing Chicago driver has moved up from P13 in the AM class to P9, and he's chasing down Stephen Parker Hamilton, as we do Parker Hamilton, I should say, as they make the way out to turn number 9 and into 10. He's got Reece Saunders behind as a lap up, so therefore Saunders is being compromised here. Well, Alvarez is just going to stay on and race in line there. It's the responsibility of the faster driver. We're not running F1 at blue flag rules, it's quite the opposite. And as they make the way on through 12 and in towards 13, going down towards the braking zone, BJ Alvarez there letting what was Saunders go and focusing on his race. But meanwhile, Erik Røseth comes on through, and as he does, well, he takes the lead of this race now in the elite and overall category once the pit stops are done. Mark Davidson, meanwhile, comes out of a 2-second longer pit stop, and Røseth has jumped Davidson as they make the way on around. And meanwhile, Moles is right there, Heckrstad's right there. This is a dramatic turn, and Reece Saunders has lost out the most of everybody. As he makes his way down through turns 2 and 3, Saunders has gone from essentially being in the battle for P3 to now battling for P6 with Ryan Davies right behind him, and that's where he's got caught up behind a couple of cars, having gone for the undercut, and it's all gone wrong with the 64 driver. But Erik Røseth, meanwhile, has jumped into lead, and with that is a phenomenal achievement from Røseth right now, and he may be on course to take the win in this race. Of course, commentators curse not foreboding or anything along those lines with 15 minutes to go. As the drivers make the way on around here, now we can really push into late stages here, and most of the pit stops are complete. The only driver yet to pit is this man, Peter Cox, the UKSimRacing Clark, and indeed as he makes way on through, I think this will be a trip to the pit lane now. The fuel tank will have seen everything it can, and as he comes into the pit lane here, decides to pit in the 32nd minute, and the 68 driver here hoping that track position has enabled him to gain some places. We'll have to wait and see as he comes in. He was running P9 in the elite class where before all the pit stops occurred, so it will be a big gain. His target will be to come out ahead of what will be effectively Nathan Scott. He will, I believe, be coming out behind Sam Congreve, the P8 driver in the elite class, albeit Cox is already leaving his pit box. So we'll have to wait and see in practice, albeit at a very early pit box. It's a long run as I look at my commentary booth window, but here is Sam Congreve on your screen as he makes his way up towards turn number 1. As he does, Cox still making his way down pit lane. That Congreve there takes the P7 back, so therefore Peter Cox will be coming out P8 in the elite class, and in the end he has regained his position of P8 class ahead of Nathan Scott. And Aaron McGregor is now ahead of Peter Cox, and with that Casper Tunstead has come out ahead of Daniel Page and Darren Sharples, as Sharples meanwhile makes it out of the pit lane. Sharples in fact has just been involved in an incident of some description on the previous lap. The UKSimRacing prize driver has been knocked down the order from what's the battle for the lead of the Pro Class, So as he makes his way through the double left here in turns 3 and 4, Sharp was now battling for the final spot of the Pro Podium versus Daniel Page. It was a critical error, and in fact so critical it's let Aaron McGregor go. But we have seen today so far that Aaron McGregor is not invulnerable, as meanwhile Sharp was there following on the racing line. And meanwhile we can see a little bit of moment for Daniel Page. Marvin Cruz holds the inside in the run down, respecting the blue flags, and as they make their way in towards turn at number 6, with Nathan Scott behind, he'll be absolutely itching to get the pro drivers have passed and long gone. But meanwhile Sharples here is going to say, no, you're going to need to wait, I'm busy battling for a podium spot here, and you've got a long way to go before you find Peter Cox up the road. I think Nathan Scott may have other ideas. They made their way through turn 18 towards 9. Nighttime now fully in the those headlights really having to work, and as they make the way through turns at number 8, 9 and 10, with Sharples all over the back here of the old Duty Cars car of which is piloted by Daniel Page. You can see that Sharples getting too close for comfort coming out of turn number 10, and in doing so has given Page an opportunity to open that gap up to 7 tenths. As they make their way down towards the hairpin, Scott's going to look for the move around the outside as they come through. The elite driver here feels as though now he's made his man and needs to make a move on him as they make their way up towards turn number 1. And as they head in up towards the braking zone, where it's going to be Sharples in backs out of this one, lets Nathan Scott go and hopes that Scott can force Page back towards him as they come through turns 1 and 2. As they make the way on around and down to the braking zone. And meanwhile in the AM class, Jack Wyborn was leading the class, albeit an extended pit stop of 22 seconds has cost him lead, and in fact he's running P2 in the AM class TBA Racing. But it's this man who now leads in the AM class, Steinar Sani from Norway, the Racing Over Esports AM2 driver in the number 78 BMW M4, lead by an advantage of only 3 seconds, boys, 3 seconds off 3 tenths. He'll take that lead until it's all said and done. And as he makes his way through turn number 2 into 3, we're hearing there's been a retirement from TD Supersports. Martin Tillin, the McLaren, has had to be taken in to the pit garage with a fault on the car, from what we understand, and therefore we've lost another car. We've still got the majority of the field racing in this event, and as we do see Steinar Sani making his way through turn number 5, he is potentially on course to take in the win in the AM class, so he can steer clear of the building charge from Jack Wyborn behind. As the drivers make the way through, with a bit further down the field to Matt Edwardson, the UKSimRacing Clark driver, running P7 in the AM class at the moment. And the reason we're focusing on him a little bit, you may remember earlier on in the race, ladies and gentlemen, right towards the start, he did have an incident which saw him drop a long way down the order. Well, since then, he's not really put a foot wrong, and he's made his way all the way up to P7 in the AM class, 3 places down on where he qualified at P4 in the class, but still the Ferrari driver here keeping his head up and carrying on, and that's where it's about there as the 176 Ferrari goes a bit wide at turn number 4, but he corrects that fault before he makes it into a major blunder and comes into 5. But as he makes his way out of that corner, meanwhile we do look to look further down the order, and this is Kerry Warren, who's making his way past by the AM driver Paul Joseph Bliss, and as he does, the Doubtful's racing driver picking up another place, and well, now trying to recover P34 in the overall stakes at the moment, a long way off this Pro Peers. P15 in Pro Class, P14 in the hands of Richard Jones is all the way up to P25, and to put that in terms of perspective, is the best part of half a lap up the road, if not more. As they come in towards turn number 13, meanwhile we do look from towards the back of the field, back up towards the very front of the field, and this is the battle for P2 in the elite class. Mark Davis of UKSimRacing Price still trying to hold on to this P2 versus Hekel Gristad, and Gristad had a very quiet race at number 1, you may recall, at Fuji, but here today started to bear his fangs a little bit more and just build his way into this race, and as they make their way down towards the next corner, in fact coming through the right hander at turn number 11 into 12, they got Ferrari, being the way in for Gristad in Motorsport. Definitely being eager now to make a move for the runner-up spot, and Erik Røseth 5 seconds away up the road. Davidson going a little bit deep down the corner, but Gristad not able to extract the advantage. Going all the way up to turn number 1, a personal best of the race. Erik Røseth of 37.155 and lapping at the moment 4 to 5 tenths faster than anybody else inside this top 5. Although I say that, and then Reece Saunders puts the 37.08, naturally not surpassing Roseth's time. So Saunders right now, I think he'll be kicking himself in the back. The undercut strategy put him into traffic. If he'd not had that traffic, Saunders could right have been the leader of this race, or battling with Røseth going into the final stages. Still, play with what we've got here, and as we do, Mark Davis is keeping Gristad at bay as they head on to what then is lap number 23, out of many to come as they roll the way down towards turn number 6. And meanwhile, behind Ryan Moles, still watching and waiting in the wings. The Protect Motorsport driver a bit out of this battle at the moment, and therefore trying to salvage some snippets of it. And well, given the pace that he's bringing to the table, Moles may be able to get involved should Davison and Grestad really start to amplify that battling. As they come out to turn number 7 and in towards 8. Behind Aaron McGregor continues his run in the lead of the Pro Class here. The gap to Daniel Pay's out to 13 seconds. And I can tell you, in recent laps, Aaron McGregor's pace has really now started to come alive. The Protect Motorsport driver delivering a 37.3 last time around. Meanwhile, Daniel Pay's P2, a 38.98. McGregor gaining 1.6 seconds in a single lap practically. I think there may have been a bit of traffic or something else that needs to be negotiated by Daniel Pay's, but right now McGregor, for all the issues we saw earlier on, has really come alive as they make their way down towards turn number 13. And as they come on for a left-hander, meanwhile we look from them to Casper Brotner battling with Alan Lever for P11, the right to be best of the rest in the Pro Class as they make their way out to the hairpin. The Lamborghini Huracan Evo driver keeping the old dudes in cars. Porsche 992 at bay as we do see the UKSimRacing Price driver doing everything he can right now to hold on to that P11 spot, albeit he has got Lewis Payne just in front of him, 1.5 seconds, so Payne's not out of this yet unless he is able to extract the advantage up to around 2 seconds, then he'll feel a bit safer as they come out to turn number 10 in towards 11. Interesting to see Lever right now had a good start to this race, had quite a bit of pace up his sleeve, but as this race has gone on, the Lamborghini has fallen off the pace to a degree compared to the Porsche behind Brotner there, taking a huge chunk out of Lever's time, going for a Ferrari corner. Brotner nailing that exit, and as they made the way out to turn number 13, whether he can stay this close in the run uphill, I think Brotner could have the move on this next lap as they charge across the line to go on to lap number 24, and as they do, Brotner hitting into turn 1, decides not to go for it, but he really extends the run of the braking, misses apex in back, doing so, I think a bit bold there, and emboldened by the amount of speed he carried on the straight, and therefore now having to reset his expectations as they come through turn 2 and into 3, but Brotner eager to make a move here. And if he does so, could he also be hunting after Lewis Payne? That'll be the question. That'll be on Payne's mind, given the fact that Brotner does look to be the fastest of the trio as they come in towards turn number 5. Lever there having a very poor run, missing the late apex and connecting with too early in apex. You can see that the car, given the rise in the road, just starting to want to understeer from the actual apex point. And Brotner here with 1.5 tenths, Fixback goes all in on the brakes. It's a very late run, but he gets it done. Credit to Alan Lever for seeing it coming. I think their Lever may have opened the steering just in case the two of them came to contact, but still Brotner being brave for it, and Lever showing the race in respect. And with that, Casper Brotner gets the P11 off of the UKSimRacing driver, but that was bold, and I think that was pushing the Porsche's brake to limit and then beyond them as they make the way through turn number 8 into 9. But as they do it through 10 now, Casper Brotner definitely on the charge. His next target, Lewis Payne, 1.4 seconds in front as they make the way in towards the double right of 11 and 12. But coming from them and looking back up through the order, we look to Mark Davison here as the Porsche driver P2 in the elite class with less than 5 minutes to go now, 4.5 minutes plus the final lap. Boy, he continues to hold on Heckle Grestad all on the back of him as they come in towards what is their turn number 8 I should say. There's turn number 9, and as they make their way through the right hand of Davison right now, definitely feeling the pinch, and I would imagine the rear tyres of that Porsche have seen much better days as they come up towards turn number 11 up with Grestad all over the back of him. Ryan Moles only 8 tenths off, and as they roll their way in towards the hairpin here, you can see right now Matt Edwardson a lap down P7 in the AM class, where he's going to have a lot of headlights coming up behind him very shortly, and I wouldn't be surprised right now if he's thinking already, what do I need to do to steer clear of these guys? He pulls immediately off racing line. I think takes his foot off the throttle to a degree, lets the car coast along at about 50% throttle and tries to let as many of the elite drivers through. He doesn't want to get involved in this for the simple reason he won't want to be called to this stewards room and have a finger wagged at him. But as they make their way through turn number 1, and Davison, Grestad and Moles now separated by 8 tenths the trio, and we jump on board with Ryan Moles here as he comes on through turn number 2 in towards 3, and now the Protect Motorsport driver's got to believe there's an opportunity to be on the podium here as they come in towards turn number 4. Keep in mind, Sam Sherwood down at the order and therefore not in with an opportunity to try and achieve a podium now in the elite class. But for Moles, he can definitely still try and get that podium for Protect Motorsport as they come out of 5. But a poor run there for Moles. cost him a bit of speed. As meanwhile, Davis and Gestad, they equalise the gaps to one another as they come into the breakage over turn number 6. And in fact, Davison having the better run of the three of them to go there, going to the hairpin. And I think Gestad now might be starting to fill the tyres on that BMW going off as they come in towards the latter half of the lap. They charge away on around. Meanwhile, we've got a battle here for what is P8 in the elite, but P7 in the elite class, we should say, and also for overall position, and that's on Aaron McGregor. The two elite drives of Congreve and Cox making their way on the inside of him through turn number 8 into 9 as they come through. All started at turn number 6, and well, Congreve didn't get that move done, eager to hold off what is Peter Cox as the UKSimRacing Clark driver continues to try and chase him. As they make their way out to turn number 10 onwards towards 11. From then we look back to Chris Kirkland, who's trying to make a recovery drive still up the inside here, and Matt Strand is going to be side by side through 7 in towards 8. Kirkland with downforce racing. He's not given up after being the leader of the Pro Class for a time in this race, and a mistake cost it very dear, but he takes P5 off the Strand there with a classic move through turn 7 into 8, and the American now charging on towards turn number 10, and as he does, he'll be hunted down. Will be Casper Tunstead with only 2 minutes to go. It's a 2.5 second gap. I think that might be a lot of the gap to close, but Strand coming back here versus Kirkland as they come through Ferrari corner. Side by side they go, and Kirkland here made to lose the place. And I think just not carrying the right amount of speed into turn number 11. So Strand's saying he's going to give it as good as he's going to receive. And as they come out of 13, it's now a run onto another lap for the pair as they head up towards turn number 1. Albeit Kirkland finding himself once again in the attacking position rather than the defending or the running away position. As they head in towards the Ovid corner. Meanwhile, behind them, Bevan Thompson at 7.5 seconds back. Can't really see what's going on in front. I think right now he'll have his crew chief on the radio to say, go faster. You may be able to get involved in this fight should they take one another off for an instant. But as the privateer makes his way through turn number 2, he'll still be pushed on if what will be his best result of the season thus far, if my memory serves me correctly. And indeed, continue to rise up through the ranks is Thompson as he comes on through towards turn number 5. But as he heads onwards towards the next stage of the lap, we look to your race leader here, Erik Røseth, and will the race will have Esports Am drive 7 seconds clear of Mark Davis and the Heckel Gestad, and with 40 seconds to go as he exits the final corner, he will go on to one more lap. It will be a 28th and final lap here today at Jerez. But meanwhile, going up the inside into the final corner before the final lap is Heckel Gestad, who takes P2 of Mark Davison. Ryan Moles is still behind, but the damage is done as now Gestad holds on to the lead of this battle as they make their way into turn 1. Final lap erupts onto our screen, and as they do, Gestad right now he's going to make that BMW as wide as humanly possible. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, that BMW is very wide compared to its peers by default, but right now Gestad's going to make it even wider as they come through 3 into 4, and as they come out to the left hand, you can see Gestad just able to put 3.5 tenths between himself and Davison, and that might be enough to keep it safe as Reece Saunders in the back of this medley now. As we look on board here for the 64 driver, he's also trying to get involved. He is the fastest of the quartet in clear air from what we've seen. And you can see that Moles immediately defending. He's worried about what's behind, not what's in front. As the Team Year 1 driver looks to move, it's going to be a very late round the brakes here from Saunders. My good lord! Well, there I think Moles felt as though he'd done enough to defend, and Saunders said, right, I'm just going to throw everything in here and see what happens. He got it stopped in time, but Moles comes back in on the inside into turn 7 and 8, and as they do it side by side round, this is for P4 in the elite class and overall. And as they come up towards turn 9, Saunders will now have the inside into the double right, and this may be what gives him the advantage coming all the way through. Moles is going to run out of racetrack, and as they come into 10, Saunders gets it done for now, but there's still a couple of quarters to go. But as they make the way towards the final corner, here's your race leader, ladies and gentlemen, as he coasts the car into the last corner, up the inside there of the car to lap down, and Erik Røseth missed out on the win at Fuji, but he's not going to miss out in today as he comes on through to take the checker flag for Race Lab Esports Am by 6 seconds in over Heckel Gestad, who comes on through for P2 ahead of Mark Davison P3. Reece Saunders will take P4 ahead of Ryan Moles in an absolutely dramatic last-ditch attempt, with Ryan Davies P6 ahead of Sam Congreve, Peter Cox P8, and Aaron McGregor makes it 2 wins out of 2 this season so far in the Pro Class. P9 overall ahead of Daniel Pays, who will very shortly come through to take P2 in the Pro Class in a deserved top 10 finish, P10 as well overall. And then we will have Nathan Scott behind him before we have Darren Sharples coming to the line to take the third and final spot on the pro podium there. P3 in class, P12 overall ahead of Casper Tunstead. It just wasn't to be his win today. Matt Strand will come through for P5 in the pro class. ahead of Chris Kirkland, and then Bevan Thompson will make his way to the line, and what will be P7 Pro Class, he comes on through, but behind him to make it two different winners in two races for the AM Class, Steinar Sunny takes the AM Class win, P16 overall for Racing Lab Esports AM2 in a brilliant drive to victory. The win that eluded him this time last season, but he's found it here today ahead of what is Jack Wyborn, who finishes P2 in the AM Class, and then it will be James Conley, P23 overall, but your AM third place driver for UKSimRacing Moss, and what has definitely been a drive of consistency ahead of Simon Andre Livingston, and then Ricky Pink completes the top 5 of the AM Class in a great drive there for the Aspire Racing Team driver, having gained 20 places overall. This is the driver who started P12 in the AM Class and P45 on the grid, and it just goes to show you sometimes you've just got to stay in it to win it, and that's exactly how it's worked out for the Briton. But as we do have a couple more cars making their way to the line, Marvin Cruz, I believe, has already finished his race and is on a cool-down lap, and will, with that, ladies and gentlemen, a thriller of a second round of the season. And let's take you through those race results, subject to any assured inquiries, and here they are. So after an absolutely thrilling 45 minutes of racing here today at the Circuito de Jerez, Ángel Nieto in Spain, we got to see in our second sprint race of the season, Erik Røseth taking the win for Racing Lab Esports AM ahead of Ignium Motorsports Hekon Gestad. Mark Davison completing the overall podium, and with that the elite podium of Røseth, Gestad and Davison in a close fought battle all the way through for the win. But after Røseth made it the lead out to the pit, he never looked back, and Gestad with that last ditch move going onto the final lap, making it count in the final corner on the penultimate lap. We saw the number 1 driver there make it his first podium of the season. Davison still has shown great elements in terms of pace and consistency, and the UKSimRacing Price Trial will be keen to make sure that's followed up in a week's time in round number 3. But Reece Saunders at P4 there for Team Year 1, and if only he hadn't have picked the strategy he did, if he'd been able to find clear track instead of come out in traffic, well, imagine the Team Year 1 driver could have been on course for the win here today, ahead of Brian Moles, who completed the top 5 for ProTech Motorsport. Not quite able to make it another podium for ProTech Motorsport, but still the 18 driver enjoying the racing here and battling hard for that top 5 finish. P6 for Ryan Davies, the TE Simsport Kimi driver, putting in a good effort early on, but as time went on, the pace started to fall away, with Empire Motorsport Sam Congreve P7 ahead of Peter Cox for UKSimRacing Clark, and then Aaron McGregor, your winner in the Pro Class, P9 overall for ProTech Motorsport, in a day where he was definitely pushed to the limit, but in the end was able to find a way to keep clear of his rivals, despite falling behind them at certain points, and it was about who made the least mistakes, and McGregor made the least when it mattered most. Daniel Payes, runner-up in the Pro Class, P10 overall, a great drive for the Old Dudes in Cars driver, a second clear in the end, and Nathan Scott best the rest for Empire Motorsport. And as we now make our way further into the overall standings, we'll just focus on the special mention podium finishers in each of the classes, plus also retirees, and we can see that P12, Darren Sharples completing the pro podium for UKSimRacing Price, indeed a podium of Aaron McGregor, Daniel Payes and Darren Sharples in the pro class. And then down in P16, and like we said earlier, this circuit was a nightmare in Season 10 for him, but today he's conquered Jerez. It's Steinar Sunny for Racing Lab Esports AM2, who has taken the win in the AM class. Had a Jack Wyborn, who finished P18 there for TPA Racing, and the TPA Racing driver making it back-to-back podiums, I believe back-to-back second places thus far. And then looking to the end of the top 20, round off by Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars. We can see in P22 completing our AM podium of what is Sunny, Wyborn and James Conley, with the UKSimRacing Moss driver there, bringing on home an absolutely deserved third place. And as we continue our way through the order, we can see Neil Smith, the last of our finishers, on the lead lap for Disaster Prime Racing, P27 overall, and what was for Smith in the end, P6 in the AM class. And then Rob Armstrong, the first star driver to finish a lap down at P28, along with Matt Edmondson, Richard Jones, Marvin Cruz, and BJ Alvarez, plus Kerry Kokorum, with Paul Joseph Cliff finishing 2 laps down, P34, ahead of Stephen Parker Hamilton, who retired with 6 laps to go, but will be classified as a finisher for TPA Racing, as he did manage over half the race distance. Sam Sherwood, P36 there for ProTech Motorsport, and given he retired 11 laps in the end, will be classified as a finisher as well, for over 50% of the distance completed. The same for Martin Tillin and for Chris Constable. And as we continue our way down on the finishing order there, quite a few retirements in the end. Indeed, I believe a grand total of 11 retirees. We also see Joe Newman and Matt Maddox with their retirements. Ryan Walker there, retiring with 14 laps to go, and that will mean he will not be classified as a finisher. He did not complete more than half the the race distance of 28 laps. And we can also see there in that same pool as well as a non-finisher, Sean Gaffney, Giles Phillips, Andy Jones, Aaron Beaver, and Damien Lobbit. With Lobbit having that unfortunate incident on lap number 1 and put the car on pole and saw him retire before he could complete a single lap. But we're at that, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes all of our racing here today at the Circuito de Jerez. But just before we come to the end of the broadcast, of course, all the racing action may have concluded, but we've still got our post-round interviews to come from our volunteer drivers, and we'll be getting those underway in approximately 15 minutes' time. But just before we take a break and a breather for those, we'd just like to take a moment to remind you that if you have been enjoying the racing action on the UK Sim Racing YouTube channel today, firstly, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcast, highlight reels, and everything else that we present on the channel as we look to expand it ever more. But also, we'd like to say, if you have been enjoying the racing and wondering how you can support UK Sim Racing, did you know there is a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For we at UK Sim Racing are affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies. These include Swirl and Meadow Sim Racing Coaching and Race Anywhere. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, well, that website will appear on screen very shortly for you, and we can see it here now in the form of the website. And well, if you click in the top right corner of your screen, you'll be able to go to the Discord. And why would you want to join our Discord? Well, firstly, the key thing about going to the Discord is you need to be a part of it if you ever want to be able to race in any of our official events or series. It's a requirement. But also, secondly, our affiliates do provide a number of discount codes on there, which if you do use one of those codes for a purchase, it's a win for you as the consumer, as you will be getting a discount on your purchase. And it's a win for the community at UK Sim Racing for the simple reason we are a non-profit organisation, and every kickback that we get from a discount code affiliate purchase, well, that all gets funded back into the community for future series, including future editions of the GT3 League, the Porsche Cup, and plenty else we've got planned for 2023 and onwards. And indeed, do go to our website today and find out more about our organisation, and make sure to join the Discord so you can capitalise on our affiliate links. And I've just had it whispered in my ear, ladies and gentlemen, that we have not covered the results from what's the individual classes for the race. We're doing things a little bit back to front today, and we do apologise for that. So therefore, we are going to get the class results up on the screen now, and we will start with the elite results. We won't be charging immediately off to preparation for interviews. And as we can see here, with regards to the elite class specifically, Erik Røseth taking the win for Racing Lab Esports and 6 seconds clear of Hekon Grestad, the Ignium Motorsport driver there, fighting hard and in the end holding off Mark Davison for UK Sim Racing Price. Reece Saunders completing the run to P4 in the end, just off of the podium ahead of Ryan Moles, with Ryan Davies, Sam Congreve, Peter Cox, Nathan Scott and Sam Sherwood completing your top 10, with only 9 elite drivers finishing on track today. Sam Sherwood classified as a finisher, much like Martin Tillin and also Joe Newman, but the 3 drivers retiring before they could get to the checker flag. So therefore, a high rate of attrition in the elite class, with Ryan Walker P13 then classified as a non-finisher, as he did not complete over half the race distance. And the Satellite Racing driver ahead of AI Race Summaries, DCW Racing's Andy Jones and Damien Lobbit, your retiree at the start of the race, unfortunately. And then as we come on to the pro class, we can see here Aaron McGregor taking that win in the end, and that 13.6 second gap, well, it could be deceiving. You'd think it'd be another day of dominance, much like at Fuji. If anything, for the ProTech Motorsport driver, it was much less than that. In the fact that in the early stage of this race, was pulling it away with a lead, only to find himself closed up after a couple of critical mistakes. Then one mistake saw the Pro Class start to battle the way through McGregor, albeit we saw then drives fall. The first was Chris Kirkland, when unfortunate moment cost him very dear, and then Casper instead later on also falling victim to a mistake, and then McGregor able to jump his way back ahead, albeit with the pressure down Sharples behind, keeping him honest all the way through. But then Sharples also losing out to Daniel Pays, and that's why McGregor's been able to take the win today. But we have definitely seen a different tone in the pro class, and I think McGregor will be grateful for the Lady Luck as well as his pace has been on his side, but he'll need to make sure he doesn't make those mistakes again in round number 3. The old dudes in cars driver Daniel Pays there in an absolutely consolidated effort for the runner-up spot ahead of the UK Sim Racing Price driver Darren Sharples. Indeed, a top 3 there not to ignore going into our next round, with Casper Tunstead P4 there, the Peak Sim Racing driver showing his credentials for a race leading pace. Head of Matt Strand, who completed the top 5 for Racing Lab Esports and 3. Mem Thompson at P6, the privateer, another solid shine for the number 74 car, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on next week with Alexander Tremino Mikkelsen, another consistent finish for the Racing Lab Esports AM driver at P7 today, continuing that run of top 10s, with Mark Johnson, Casper Rotner and Lewis Payne completing your top 10 there for the pro class, and then best of P11 at UK Sim Racing Prices and Leather, 4 seconds clear at Downfall Racing's Chris Kirkland, but Kirkland in the end, I think, feeling as though there was more out there today and potentially a win on the cards. The lap down finishers included Rob Armstrong P13, Richard Jones P14 and Kerry Corcoran at P15, and then the retirees are Chris Constable, Giles Phillips and Aaron Beaver, with Chris Constable classified as a finisher as he completed over half the race distance. And as we come onto the AM class, last but not least, we can see Stein Alsani there taking the win for Racing Lab Esports AM2. 3 seconds clear of Jack Wybon for TPA Racing. And well, Stein Alsani today not letting the circuit daunt him despite the nighttime conditions. And finally notching the win at Jerez that he's wanted to take for some time. Jack Wybon, again, another second place. And I think Wybon will take it to his credit that the TPA Racing team today were on course for a potential 1-2 until Parker Hamilton's unfortunate incident. But still, Wybon keeping things calm and collected ahead of James Conley for UK Sim Racing Moss, who has picked up, I believe, his first podium in quite some time in the AM class, and congratulations to the 46 driver pushing on in the Ferrari ahead of fellow Ferrari driver Racing Lab Esports AM Simon Andre Livingston. There's only half a second between the two, and I think we'll see some fireworks between them next time out, and Ricky Pink completing at the top 5 there for Aspire Racing Team, and with that his first top 5 of the season, and Neil Smith, the last finisher on the lead lap there for Disaster Prime Racing, a further 14 seconds behind. Finishing a lap down, Matt Edmondson and Marvin Cruz, along with BJ Alvarez, all 3 drivers there, making great drives after difficult starts, whether it was in qualifying or at the start of the race. And then behind the Team Sim Racing Chicago driver, Paul Joseph Cliss, 2 laps down, but still takes P10 in class for Olympus Esports. And then a further 4 laps down, Stephen Parker Hamilton, classified as a finisher despite his late retirement. And the TPA Racing driver followed up by the retirees of Matt Maddox and Sean Gaffney, with Maddox being classified as a finisher as he completed just over half the race distance, but Simulation Motorsports Gaffney not classified as a finisher as he only managed 12 laps in the end out of 28. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we do apologise for the slightly scatterboned instance of going through the results there, but we have covered all of our class results now, and we are now going to step away for a breather, and we'll be back in approximately 10 to 12 minutes time to bring you those post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today, we've got a Racing Lab Esports AM contingent for interviews. Started off very shortly with our elite class winner from today, Erik Røseth, who's now made it 2 40 points finishes back-to-back and will be taking the elite class championship lead after today. And then we'll be hearing from the AM 4th place finisher, but pole sitter of Seaman Andre Livingston, who had a race that definitely could have gone a bit more forwards rather than backwards, but still has had a strong experience and one he'll take from. But without further ado, I'll be very shortly joined by our elite class winner of Erik Røseth, and we'll get to hear his perspective on what's definitely been a challenging race with the pressure placed on him. And as he does join me now in the interview room, good evening to you, Erik, and well, what a race from yourself. How does it feel to take your first win of the season?
Good evening, Paul. Well, this was quite a shocker, to be honest. Fuji was a shocker as well. I didn't think I had the pace to be at the top of elite, but it seems like something's clicked since past season, considering the pace. That's for sure.
Oh, indeed. I'd say something has clicked to the fact at Fuji, just missing out on the win in the end from a last-ditch move from Sam Sherwood, albeit one of the moves of the season. And then today, just missing out on pole position by a couple attempts, but then able to make it up in the race. Let's talk a little bit about qualifying. How was qualifying for yourself? Because to put it P2 on the grid is an achievement in an elite class that is so strong.
Well, considering I've found this consistency throughout the race session, it seems like I've lost some of that one lap pace. At Jerez, I didn't find the last tenth or two to be at the top. Never been my fastest track. So Damien took that one. He deserved it.
Well, Damien may have been on pole, but going into the race, we saw early on our race leader make a mistake, and then you found yourself in P2, albeit behind Mark Davison, who was able to get the jump on you at the start.
Yeah, I had a bit of a rough start. I didn't actually hear or see Damien go at the start, so I were a bit late. So Mark went in front, and after the first couple of laps, I figured I'd just settle behind him, find my pace and rhythm, save some fuel and save the tires, and just wait for the right opportunity to go past.
And it took some time for that opportunity to come, but as night fell on the Jerez circuit, you started to build a bit more pace, but I think it was always going to come on strategy in the end.
Yeah, well, considering I settled behind Mark in P2, I was able to save quite a bit of fuel, so I knew I had a shorter pit stop coming. But I wanted to be in front of him going into pits, just in case I were behind him through pits. So the couple of laps before pits, I just had to send it, honestly, but I didn't want to ruin anyone's race. That's why it took so long. I had to be confident I could get the overtake done correctly without ruining something.
Oh, indeed, and it was a great overtake to see making the move when you did just before the pit stop came about. And from that point onwards, it was all about seeing where you'd come out the pit in relation to the other drivers. And I have to ask, when you emerged from the pit and saw you were leading the race still, and Davison and Gristad started to fight one another, was it a smile coming onto your face, thinking that this win's now in the bag?
Actually, I never think before I cross the line that that the win is in the bag, because there's just a small mistake that can make this go the entirely wrong way. Especially at this track, there's quite a lot of sweeping corners, and if you miss in one of the corners and go out of track, you lose more than the 4 or 5 seconds I were in the lead.
Oh, most definitely a mistake, very easy to make around here, like you say, but in the end, absolutely faultless to the checker flag, and then coming around the final corner to take race victory. It must have been a big sigh of relief when you crossed that line and knew you've taken your first win of the season.
Yeah, that was a fantastic feeling, to be honest. I really enjoyed that. And the race, in its entirety, was a really good race. The whole lead pack, fantastic racing. The first stint, such good fighting. Everything was immaculate, in my opinion.
With you on that, some superb racing, particularly through the top 5. And just on that, we saw the 4 Porsches of yourself, Davison, and also what was, I do believe, Sherwood and Moles. But we also saw the BMWs of Grostad and also Rhys Saunders fighting with you at some points. Just your thoughts on the fact the Porsche is very strong, but the BMW M4 also seems to be competitive.
Yeah, I was actually debating myself with myself before the season if I were to choose the Porsche or the BMW. The BMW has been a strong car at almost any track, at least last season, and it's strong this season as well. But I never seem to find my pace in that car. The Porsche is such a nice fit for me and my driving style, so I think that's why the pace has shown itself this time around.
Well, if the car's a natural fit, it does seem to be shining through the way you approached each race and the pace you're extracting. And now with 2 40 points finishes, you lead the Elite Championship going into round number 3. You're on 80 points versus that of your peers. In fact, we can confirm provisional standings say you're 9 points clear of Rhys Saunders. And next week, it's Motorland Aragon. How are you feeling for round number 3?
I've barely driven that track, but I enjoy it a lot. It's a nice track, got good rhythm to it. But I've seen sometimes some of the timings from the elite folks already, and I believe, yeah, I think the standings will shake up.
We'll be interested to see if they do. Well, we do also hope that you're able to take the fight to your rivals. But just before we do let you go, Erik, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast today?
I would like to thank my team, of course, Racing Lab Esports, both the amateur team, which I'm driving for, and the pro team, which comes in handy quite a lot of times. And also to my family and friends for supporting me in doing this hobby. And also thanks to you, Paul, for a great broadcast yet again.
Well, Erik, on that note, I must say thank you to you for joining me in the interview room. Congratulations on your win at Jerez, an absolutely deserved victory. The first of potentially a number this season, depending on how things go. And we look forward to seeing you out of the circuit this coming weekend at the Spanish circuit of Motorland Aragon.
Thank you so much, Paul. Have a good evening.
You too. All the best. So hearing there from Erik Røseth, your elite class winner today for Racing Lab Esports AM. And well, with the qualifying session really being a sign of where his pace is relative to his peers, congratulations Damien Lobbit on his pole position for Symphony Esports. We saw going into the race that I think for Røseth it was a rise to an occasion, and at first struggled a little bit to rise to it, losing the place to Mark Davison, and Davison taking the lead after Lobbit's unfortunate incident coming out of turns 3 and 4. But then it was a scrap between the two of them, and as we continue to look at the pictures there, interesting insight from Erik in the fact he was talking about wanting to stay behind and manage the pace, but at the same time wanting to make sure he got the move for the lead done before he came into the pits, just in case he lost out through the pit stops if the two drivers came in together and Will Davison was able to creep back out in front. And in terms of relative delta times of those pit stops, very close on their pit stops, so it could have been a reality where Røseth would have come in and still come out behind Davison, but still got the move done. It wasn't necessarily the cleanest move of the ball. It was a bold and a brave one and made it happen, and from that point onwards didn't look back. Albeit interesting also, not counting on the fact Now when Davison and Grostad started to fight absolutely tremendously for P2, that the win was in his hands, he only took the win for granted when he saw the checker flag and crossed it. I think that is a sign of a potential champion-elect, with Røseth really dictating the pace at the front of the field for the first two rounds, but also mentioning that Motorland Aragon, it may not be the same and he's expecting the field to be shaken up, but I wonder whether he may find a little bit of pace between now and when we go racing this coming Sunday. And coming from our first interview of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we'll very shortly be coming on to our second interview, also from Racing Lab Esports AM, and it'll be the AM class driver, Simon Andre Livingston, in what has been a challenging race from him today, in the fact he took pole position in class only to end up P4. But as he joins me now in the interview room, Simon Andre, it did look a tough one out there in Spain, particularly under night lights. A pole position in the end converted to a 4th place in class finish. Not the perfect day. A lot more you could have taken from it.
Yes, good evening, Paul. Yeah, that was great qualifying, but what can I say about the race? Things happen.
Oh, indeed. But let's focus on qualifying, the area where you absolutely excelled today. There's no question about it, or I should say excelled on Sunday, in the fact, in the end, taking a pole position for the first time this season with some big names in the field, including the likes of Jack Wyborn and also teammate Steinar Sani, both battling for that pole position. What was it like doing a qualifying lap at the Jerez circuit?
No, it's a circuit that I quite like, to be honest. So I was excited going in for the qualification, but I was struggling quite hard in the 3 first laps, and it was actually my last lap when I just said, okay, now just put your gloves down and just drive as you never drive before. And then when I crossed the finish line and saw that my delta was quite good, and then saw that I only beat like Steiner by probably like 15 hundredths of a seconds or something, I was like screaming off the top of my lungs. So I hope the neighbors on Sunday didn't have any complaints about that, but yeah, that felt great.
Oh, brilliant. I love the emotions behind it. And I have to ask, with regards to your car choice this season, a lot of people have gone for the Porsche. You've gone for the Ferrari. What's made you stay with the car that led you to some great results in season 10?
To be honest, it's kind of the only car of the GT3s that I have like ever driven. It's the only car I own, and I feel at home in it. And I just like recent before the season started, I managed to go and borrow an account to just try the other GT3 cars, and I've felt like, okay, maybe the Porsche is quite easy to drive and it felt quite quick, but it's still not the Ferrari. It's just something about the Ferrari. And I grew up watching F1 and being a Ferrari fan, so I just kind of stick with it. And this season though, so the Ferrari feels quite good after the upgrades of the last update, so I just figure out I will just stick to it to the very end.
Well, that's a fair choice, and I think a smart one. That going with what you know, and well, from that point onwards, going into the race, we saw a reasonable start from yourself, and then I think a little bit of shakiness started to creep in, and saw you drop out of the podium places.
Yeah, I think it was actually my teammate Erik who had a not so good launch in the start, so the Constantina went back into my line because I was in his line, so Steiner jumped me quite quick in the start, and then I just settled back and was just trying to keep the delta at the steady point and just trying to ease into the race as I normally kind of like, just to get the nerves under control and just feel like, okay, here's my pace in the race, and just stay there. And then there was like going into, I'm so bad with the numbers, but like yeah, where I was standing in the sand pit there was a BMW going off the road and rejoining, so I kind of like eased off the throttle, and the guy behind didn't react quick enough, so he just gently tapped me in the rear, and I spun out of the corner and just sat there in the sand trap with my gloves in my face, just shaking my head, just seeing the whole field pass by, just, oh, not again, not the same old story. But I just got out on the track again, just tried to keep my head down, just trying to drive it as a time attack, just trying to keep my delta as close lap by lap. And then when I started catching catching some guys in front, I just figure out, okay, it's a good time to just jump into the pits if they are not jumping into the pits, to just try to keep some clean air. And when I went into the pits and came out, I had some clean air and put in some fast laps, and then I came out, and I think it was James who just came out of the pits ahead of me, so I just stayed behind him for like 50 minutes of the end of the race, and we had a hard battle. He was defending like I don't know, like a defense player in American football. He couldn't get past him, but it was clean and fair, and I enjoyed that battle. But at the time I didn't know it was for P3, so probably would have sent it at some point if I knew it was for P3 in the class. But looking back at the start of the race, a P4 is like a victory for me in this race, so I'm happy.
Well, you definitely sound it, and it was a strong recovery drive, and an interesting call in your strategy there, making sure to look for a clean track ahead to be able to try and recover more race time. And like you say, coming out behind James Connolly, who defended stoically to the end. Albeit now we've seen you battle with James Connolly, and with that battle, it's really set the tone for what is expected to be an AM Class Championship that's going to go the way to the wire. You're currently third place in the championship after 2 rounds, albeit they've both been at 2 rounds that haven't quite gone right. How are you feeling for round number 3 at Motorland Aragon?
I haven't had the time yet to test the track, so that is probably the biggest problem. But if I find my pace, and like I feel like I've done some good progress since the last season, and have been pushing quite hard and learning from Erik and all the other guys in the team, and we are a group of people who have a collective goal of just becoming faster, so we push each other and we learn from each other. So hopefully I will find the pace at the track as well, and I'm always aiming for, like, after seeing the pace of the 2 first race, I will say I'm still aiming for like a podium finish in every race, and hopefully by the end of the season, when all the scores are calculated, I will hope to be at least somewhere in the top. If I'm not P1, P3, or even P4, I will still be happy, because it's too much fun racing in this series to be mad about the position. I just enjoy the racing, and everybody in the league is fantastic to race against. And sometimes incidents happen, like today, and even in Fuji I had a similar incident when there was an incident in front of me, and a guy behind didn't have time to react and hit me in the rear and pushed me on the grass, but I still smiled after that race as well. So I don't know, I just think I'm too happy with the sim world in total to really care too much about the points and everything. I don't know what to say, Paul. It's great. I just love it.
Well, I'm glad to hear you enjoy it, and I think the happy-go-lucky approach you're taking is something that we can all learn from, in terms of when things go wrong, just put your head down, smile about it, and see what you can get in return. And you've shown that in the first 2 rounds, and we look forward to more from you in round number 3. But just before we start to get ready to let you go, a quick comment on your teammate Steinar Sani, who picked up his first win of the season here today at a circuit which last season he was on course to battle for the win, but it caught him out when he was battling with Mark Johnson back in season 10.
Yeah, Steinar is a quick lad. He's normally in practices I'm some tenths behind, but when the race day comes, we normally kind of like meet. I don't know if it's just me focusing more or whatever, but considering what happened here last season, and he even had like a victory in this pocket, if I don't remember mistakenly, in Belle Isle, and then his PC just went into black screen. So I think he's quite happy about it, and I know for a fact that he probably felt that this was a good revenge from last season. So I hope to see him battling in the top with me the rest of the season, and hopefully, yeah, if he stands on the top of the podium on the end of the season, I will cheer for him all the way through the bitter end. So hopefully he will continue his fast pace the rest of the season.
Well, fingers crossed for him and indeed for the pair of you, if not the wider team, that the results can continue to come. And just as we do get ready to let you go, Simon Andre, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I would like to thank all of my teammates, and I would give a personal shout out to Erik, because we practiced hard into this race and he gave me a lot of pointers, and my lap time dropped pretty fast after he gave me some pointers. And I will thank my family when I was sitting at home watching the broadcast, and of course thanks to you, Paul, for the greatest, I don't know what to say, the greatest commentator in SimSport, considering what I've known so far. So keep on the good work, I will say, mate.
I will do, Simon Andre, and likewise, keep up the good work on circuit. It has been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room as always. Congratulations on your results today, and we do look forward to seeing you out of the circuit once again in Spain this coming Sunday.
Yes, good evening, Paul.
All the best. So hearing there from Simon Andre Livingston, absolutely happy with his performance, no doubt about it. Indeed, I love his attitude with regards to the racing, which is he can't be too angry at the race. He can always find positives, even if he ends up at the back of the field at the very start, like happened today with that early instant, and then making that recovery drive. And what a recovery it was for the number 3 driver from Racing Ab Esports AM. Not quite able to recover onto the podium. Harassing and harrying was then James Conley in the battle for the final podium spot, but Conley coming out on top in the end. But still, Livingston finding his way all the way through the field, picking the right time and strategy, and going with a car that's boded with him well over the course of the last season, and a car he's very comfortable with, and it's all come together. The only thing he now needs to come together is a round of racing where it doesn't go wrong early on in the race due to an incident not necessarily his fault, and indeed just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And could we see that at Motorland Aragon? We'll have to wait and see. But until then, right now for Livingston, it's a battle to be inside the top 3 of the AM Championship, and that battle is well and truly on. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. We've had 2 interviewees, both from Racing Ab Esports AM. We heard firstly from Erik Røseth in the number 42 car in the elite class, and congratulations to him once again on his deserved win overall in the elite class after what was a P2 start on the grid and a close-knit battle with Mark Davison all the way. And then we secondly heard from Simon Andre Livingston, the Racing Ab Esports AM driver, who made it all about a recovery drive today and started on pole in the AM class to fall towards the back and then make his way through to P4 is by no means a mean feat, and therefore both drivers continue to ignite their championship aspirations, and I think we'll expect to see plenty more from them in round number 3 and onwards, if not the wider Racing Ab Esports AM team as well. But most importantly, thank you to them for joining me in the interview room. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just before we begin to wrap up, it's a good time for us to give you an update on the championship standings after 2 rounds of racing, and we start off with the elite class. But let's remind you, all these results are currently provisional for round number 2. The stewardship decisions have not quite been finalised as we're to understand it, so therefore these could be subject to change. But we see in the elite standings after 2 rounds, it's Erik Røseth who leads for Racing Ab Esports AM by 9 points over Rhys Saunders from Team Year 1. Interesting to see the consistency from both drivers. Røseth has now made it 2 40 points finishes with a 2nd place at Fuji, but the bonus points for fastest lap and also what was pole position in qualifying, and then the win today. Meanwhile for Rhys Saunders, it's all a bit about back-to-back strong finishes, albeit picking up 36 points for his podium at Fuji, and then with 4th place today in what was the race at Jerez. And on top of that as well, one of the accolades, and I believe it was the fastest lap bonus point, Saunders is definitely showing that he's in this and not out of it yet, but he'll be looking to try and make it another podium next time out, as will Hekel Gustav for Eden Motorsport, whose 2nd place day has propelled him all the way up towards P3. Indeed, our defending champion now finds himself getting right back into the thick of it at the right time. Sam Sherwood, with the unfortunate drop of points today, will be moving to P4 now for Protect Motorsport on 62 points, 2 clear of Ryan Davis of Tiki SimSport Kimmy, who put in another solid finish inside the top 10. Then Peter Cox, P6 for UKSimRacing Clark still ahead of what is his sister team's rival teammate of Mark Davison. But Mark Davison for UKSimRacing Prize showing an element today of race leading pace on 36 points from this race, plus the 16 from the previous one. Could we see Davison start to mount a charge into the top 5? I think many will be watching the number 23 Porsche next time out. Ryan Moles P8 there for Protect Motorsport, not quite able to make it a podium, but still some good points on the board after a dismal day at Fuji. And then Joe Noonan for Empire Motorsport and Satellite Races. Ryan Walker completing your top 10 there, with both drivers having a difficult race and one to recover from next time out. Best of SP11, it's Nathan Scott for Empire Motorsport. Having had to fight his way through the field in both races so far, he'll be looking for a simpler story at Motorland Aragon, as will Damien Lobbit, with the complexity of what was a good day at Fuji, then being belied by the difficulties today at the Jerez circuit, that early retirement after taking pole position. Then Sam Congreve, Thomas Aspau and Martin Tilley completing your top 15, with Cy Anthony and Andy Jones completing the standings there, and Andy Jones unfortunately yet to score a single point, but still plenty of rounds to come. We'll then come on to the Pro Class standings, and well, here the story is a little bit different. At the top, leading on 82 points, albeit not quite perfection, but very close to it, is Protect Motorsport's Aaron McGregor. With an advantage of 8 points, Darren Sharples is now the main pursuer, and he'll need to try and close up as soon as possible. But we have seen a vulnerability in McGregor's armour today. We saw mistakes from McGregor. We also saw that the pace gap between him and his rivals was much tighter compared to Fuji, and therefore could we be starting to see the turn in the championship? Sharples, we think that's the case for UKSimRacing Prize, as will Peak Sim Race's Casper Tunstead, a driver from Denmark who's definitely shown that he's not just there to make up the numbers, as the 104 Porsche driver was definitely on the ball with the pace today and could have potentially been the race winner. As could have Daniel Pace, only behind based on result countback for Old Dudes in Cars, and the same for Matt Strand there, who's fighting for podiums for Racing Lab Esports and Free, albeit a further 10 points behind. Bevan Thompson at P6 on 56 points, a reliable driver and a consistent one at that. Keep your eyes on him. I suspect another top 5 finish is on the card soon, with Alexander Tremino Mikkelsen P7 ahead of Chris Constable, Casper Rotner and Richard Jones, and that top 10 very close, and indeed it will only take one round to shake things up. P11, Mark Johnson for UKSimRacing Clark. We're waiting to see Johnson's Pro Championship campaign get underway. It's in his inaugural season in the Pro class, but he hasn't quite found the fire from his AM class days, and will the Mercedes AMG Evo drive find it at Aragon? That will be the question. He'll need to do so soon, because Chris Kirkland is only behind based on result countback, and how for the Downforce Racing drive things could have been different if it hadn't been that critical error which cost him, plus the incident that followed, which saw him drop out of the lead of the race. Aaron Beaver, Alan Lever and Rob Armstrong complete your top 15, with Lewis Payne P60 ahead of Kerry Kokoran, and then we have Brandon Hay, Rudy Avitzland and Martin Ferdy completing your top 20, with Ferdy yet to score points in the championship, and the same applies for John Watt, Joe McManus, Ian Manners and Charles Phillips. Then coming on to the AM class, we can see here in the AM Championship, the complexion at the top is it's a joint lead between Steinar Sunny for Racing Lab Esports AM2 and Jack Wireborn for TPA Racing. Both drivers have got different forms of results here, with Sunny ahead based on result countback. A third place at Fuji and a win today versus 2 back-to-back second place finishes for Jack Wireborn. It does mean right now it's all go for the pair, and they'll be trying to break away for the rest of the field. Meanwhile, Simon Andre Livingston, P3 for Racing Lab Esports AM. He's only ahead of Neil Smith based on result countback. And again, look at the consistency of Smith for Disaster Prone Racing versus the mixed bag of results of the Racing Lab Esports AM driver. And there you're starting to see this picture whereby it's going to be consistency just as much as pace, which will dictate the championship. But don't rule out Paul Joseph Cliss, the Olympus Esports driver. Currently P5 on 50 points. Not as strong as showing today compared to last time out of Fuji, but still well inside the hunt and ahead of Marvin Cruz, Ricky Ping, John Doble, Stephen Parker Hamilton and BJ Arrows to complete your top 10. But there's 2 names inside the latter half of this top 10 we also need to keep an eye on. In particular, firstly, Stephen Parker Hamilton, pace leader today and pace setter, and losing out of the win in the end after a mistake cost him dear versus his TPA Racing teammate Jack Wireborn. But Parker Hamilton definitely shown the credentials for pace. He just needs to eliminate those mistakes in the race. And John Doble, remember, we saw him take the win in round number 1. He won't be back until round number 4, so therefore he'll drop down the standings a long way, but then he'll be looking to try and make his charging arc back through the field. Best of SP11 is James Connolly with his first race of the season today, and with that third place finish definitely definitely boded well for the UK Sim Racing Boss driver. 2 points clear of Thomas Barjuk, with Stuart Pearson, Matt Edmondson and Sean Gaffney completing your top 15. And then we have Satinder Deansat P16 not in attendance today. And then Matt Maddox, Cy Hartley and Frank Klein completing the standings. And we're expecting the 9 she's an Autosport driver Frank Klein to be able to participate in one of the upcoming rounds is yet to make a round. But then we come on to the Teams Championship, ladies and gentlemen. And here at the very top, it's close. It's only 6 points between ProTech Motorsport and Racing Lab Esports Am, with both teams having good results to start off their season and starting to break away by 14 points for UK Sim Racing Price and Tiki Sim Sport Kimmy, who follow. However, it's close in the chase for P3 with TPA Racing and Old Dudes in Cars not too far off the hunt. And it's a further 10 points to Racing Lab Esports Am2, with UK Sim Racing Boss and UK Sim Racing Clark almost completed the top 10, albeit Empire Motorsport in the 10th and final spot. There, what is the best part of 19 points clear a team at year 1, and therefore we are starting to see a gap emerge between the top 10 and the rest of the field, with the best of the rest team of year 1 being separated by a single point from Slow and Steady Racing, Peak Sim Racing and Ignium Motorsport. And it's a further 10 points to Racing Lab Esports and 3, with Disaster Prone Racing only behind based on result countback. Symphony Esports, Downforce Racing, Olympus Esports and Bytes Racing complete your top 20, with Aspire Racing team just outside the top 20 by 4 points, but sits clear of Team Sim Racing Chicago. And then we have Satellite Racing and Tiki Sim Sport Tire, a point between the two in the battle for P23, with Simulation Motorsport complete in the top 25, and it's ProTech Academy, the last two to get points on the board at P26 on 22 points, and yet to score any points, Philips GP, 9 Cheese at Autosport and AI Race Summaries DCW Racing. They complete your 29 teams in the Teams Championship standings. But with the standings covered, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK Sim Racing community, perhaps you're sat there now, right there now, as I try to get my words correct. Goodness me, I'm not sure what's wrong with me today, ladies and gentlemen. You're sat there right now, I should say. There we go, for the third time of asking, looking to get into a league, perhaps on iRacing. Alternatively, just want to know a little bit more about the world of UK Sim Racing community and how you can be a part of such a wonderful community. Well, you can firstly check out our official website, that's uksimracing.co.uk, to find out plenty more detail. You saw that website appear earlier on screen in today's broadcast. Alternatively, if you're more of a social media follower, well, you can follow us on our official Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. We'd also like to take a brief moment to give a big thank you to our affiliates, which include Swillow Meadow Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, Demon Tweaks, SimLab and Amazon. And start off with Swillow Meadow Sim Racing Coaching. And the key thing about Swillow Meadow Sim Racing Coaching is that Swillow Meadow was the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist, and his coaching can help take your sim racing drive to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a temp, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swillow Meadow has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Swillow being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching for the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment, aiming to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks to provide a most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks can help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. We also have SimLab there, the leading manufacturer of high quality sim racing related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experience with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make them the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. And lastly, Amazon, the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to one-click shopping, Amazon Prime and Amazon Fire tablets. But speaking of things being on fire, ladies and gentlemen, we stay in the hot and sultry region of Spain for next time out on Sunday the 9th of July. All the racing action will be brought to you live, and it will be brought to you live from Motorland Aragon. Having recently arrived on the iRacing service, this is a circuit that's got many of our drivers scratching their heads as they try to find their feet and find their pace. But who's going to come out on top in the conclusion of our Spanish doubleheader or another sprint round on the cards? We'll find out in just under a week's time. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.